Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 10th InnoGrid edition, the innovation conference co-organized by ENTSO-E and ENTSO. So this is the second day where we will look actually on how we move beyond the sandboxes, so those test beds which are foreseen in the framework of regulation for the network operators. This focus today is going to show us 8 projects in which we will see actually how assets can contribute to flexibility, on how we can operate cross-border dimension, on how we can integrate on the whole energy supply chain the different assets in order to achieve the energy transition. We will also look to the markets. We will look to the products and services for this new framework, which is the flexibility. So now I will have the pleasure to introduce you first some logistic rules, and I have to drive you towards Slido. So there you could put your questions, because you will not be allowed to ask questions in the chat or the question box of the GoToWebinar. You unfortunately cannot present yourself through the voice or through the web camera, but I would like to ask you, when you put your questions, to write your name, and we will go there in Slido and choose the most voted questions. We will raise these questions to the intervenants, and I would like to ask you to stay with us for this 3-hour session in the morning. And now we go to the first speaker for today, and I would like to introduce Mr. Uroš Salobir, Director of Strategic Innovation Department with LS, the TSO in Slovenia, and who is also the Vice Chair of the Research, Development and Innovation Committee in ENTSO-E. So the screen is yours, Uroš.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes.
I guess you hear me, so thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, great pleasure for me to be here. And Norella, thank you for this introduction. Yes, it's the sandboxes, yeah, which are the main topic, and not only the sandboxes, but going beyond the sandboxes, which seems to be quite ambitious at this point of time. But I think we should actually look into this area from a bit wider perspective first, and then look into what we have achieved regarding to these elements, and maybe what we could do better in the future. So if we go to the next slide, the sandboxes sometimes are more looked upon or preserved or assumed as an element of consumer engagement, which means that they want to touch the communities, smaller areas, and try different new elements, and then of course look for replication potential and go to the wider scalability areas. But the point here is that I would call this environment more like vertical development of the energy integration in the grid. So we talk about TSO, DSO collaboration, the collaboration between the operators and the end consumers, and then of course all the assets which can be engaged in this issue, and of course the production units, the storage and demand response, and everything what we know today to work on this field. So I will call this element vertical. Some people call it deep electrification. Some people call it consumer engagement. But we should see that the regulatory elements and sandboxes should also be explored on other levels of system integration. We discussed a week ago about cross-sector integration. So when we talk about the collaboration between e-mobility and power to heat and the clean gases with the power system, we will need to have new elements of regulation there as well. But on the other hand, we shouldn't forget the traditional horizontal power networks. We shouldn't forget about cross-national networks. We shouldn't forget about this basic exchange of energy flowing across the member states of European countries. And these elements, of course, are not limited to Europe. We know that there are numerous possibilities to extend them on the level of, I would say, cross-continental connections, and we can really see the future also going in the direction of copper plate, technological copper plates, or different highways flowing through Europe on different levels. And all this has to be seen as part of the game which we are playing here. So if we go to the next slide, what we have achieved today, we have a very good practice on the vertical and the horizontal integration. So this will be the primary content of the today event. We will mostly tackle these two elements because the cross-sector integration was already tackled 1 week ago. And here, I think we can be proud of the achievements which we made together. So the DSOs, the TSOs, a lot of stakeholders were engaged in this project. So the contribution of ENTSO-E here was that we tried to elaborate the roadmaps. We tried to bring the best implementation reports and implementation plans. We tried to consolidate the content, and of course, we were very actively engaged also in the creation of the projects which here are presented on the right. But these are actually also the projects which will be in detail and more in the direction of our conference presented later on today. If we go to the next slide, and having in mind these huge amounts of energy and the power coming from different variable sources, like 450 gigawatts of wind energy coming from the north, this will have enormous impact on all of us. And here, of course, we have to ask ourselves, is what we are doing today enough to reach these huge defossilization targets? And if we look at this slide on the left side, I could purely say that the knowledge which we have, the positions which we have devised and exchange and information which we have on the table, also the deliverables which have been brought in from the many projects which we did up to now, engaged in different levels. So we have this knowledge, and we should use it in different ways. But going into demonstration environments, I talk with many people being part of this project. Also, my company is part of many of these projects. We understand each other in the direction that sometimes going from incremental into more, I would say, rudimental changes might need more focus into the program. So we have to touch the project as such more in depth. And the partnerships which we create are also a constant struggle, because we need effective partnerships on these demonstration projects. It's not a joke here. We are talking about business. We're talking about the things being put in practice, and we know that these projects need to be based on effective partnerships. The next challenge I have to expose is the cross-national perspective. All the projects where we work on are cross-national, but the question is, are they really working for the pan-European targets? Are they just a combination of national perspectives, or are they really working for the pan-European targets? And these are very tough questions, which are not easy to answer, but we have to strive for better solutions here. So demonstration should go for more and more proactivity here. But that's not all, of course. When we move from demonstration into investment environment, we have to check: are we as partners really willing to take all the risks of smart environments into our backs? So are we willing to create the social welfare instead of the profits for our companies? Are we working in a really natural environment for efficient investment? So efficiency investment compared to traditional investments can be sometimes a bit tricky in these questions, but of course these are all the elements which are very closely linked to the sandboxes and going beyond the sandboxes, as the title of our session is called. So if we go to the next slide, why should we bother at all? So why don't we leave all these elements simply to markets? So sometimes markets really have the best answers. We don't need a lot of planning. So if the markets play well, we can see them working in the best for the society. But the real challenge here is that we are today in a more or less stable environment of network charges. We know that that consumers are also willing to pay a higher price in the mid future, because they want to get into the green environment. And this, how I call it, formation phase, is the time which we have to get the infrastructure which will be needed to get the green solutions in, to get the efficient solutions. But the trick here is that we should understand the consumer, that he will be willing to pay a higher price for a certain time, let's call it green premium, but he will not indefinitely support such higher price. We should expect that once this new system, whatever it is created, and when we get into exploitation of this system, that the consumers will expect their price to go down. And this green premium shouldn't be regarded as infinitive. And now the trick lies in the detail, that if we do the right decisions, if we go for the right investments, the right infrastructure, the right planning, the right combination of infrastructure assets, the market, then we could expect on the long term that this premium will really go away. So how do I see that this could happen? If we go to the last slide of my presentation. What we already did and what we should do even more, so can we go to the last slide, is that we need to do the prioritization. So we need to know what are the key problems, where should we put the most of our efforts, and where we should be in the most concentrated way. So ENTSO-E is helping with the roadmap, with the implementation report. The new version of these documents are really much more prioritizing different elements, and I think we all should look for that. ENTSO-E is also working together with DSOs on the second level, the second ingredients, which we see as the help for acceleration, to develop not only the programs which are more or less like a framework, but also to touch the real project. So to go into this demonstration environment with a more proactive and more focused approach. So this is also what we can do better in the future. And when we talk about the need for upscale and uptake, ENTSO-E is working very hard to bring the projects also into this high TRL, this application level. And here we see a huge opportunity to explore and to use more opportunities given from the CEF funding. So today we are very much into the Horizon projects. In the future, the direction of our thoughts on the smart grid should go in the investments, should go into the projects which are usually funded by Horizon, by CEF. But as a conclusion, as a most important element of my presentation, what I really want you to take away is that the partnerships which are created through these different activities which you do should go from the framework definition to the research environment, into the demonstration, but not but least also into the investment environment. So yes, we need to create partnerships on all these levels, and they should play very well also on the last stage, on the investment stage. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Uroš, for this introduction and for actually bridging the two elements of the beyond sandboxes. So on one hand, the research demonstration projects, but on the other hand, partnership and investments for the upscale. I would like to say that I would be a little bit tougher because we really have to keep the timing. So when you see me on the screen, it means that we have only 1 minute to go. Thank you very much, Uroš, for this intervention, and we will have you with us also at the end of today InnoGrid event. Now I would like to pass the floor to Richard Witlitska. Sorry, Richard, for maybe not pronouncing very well your family name, who is Manager of Innovation and EU Projects with ČEZ Distribuce and Chair of Innovation and Research Committee with the ENTSO. So the screen is yours, Richard.
So ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I hope you hear me well. And I'd like to thank for the floor, and let me spend few seconds about my presentation. As Norela said, I've been working in the Czech Republic for the company ČEZ, or for the group ČEZ. I'm active in energy sector for more than 17 years. And I am involved in EDSO and also in other European associations like Euroelectric. So today I am very pleased and honored to have opportunity of presenting EDSO priorities and also DSO's mission. How we understand our responsibility to all the stakeholders, including customers, partners, and also municipalities, national or government entities. So that's the target of my very brief presentation. So I wish to highlight the paramount role of grid operators. And as Uroš said, and Uroš mentioned several times, the importance of partnership. And ENTSO-E and EDSO together, in my opinion, have been boosting partnership for a longer time. And I think both organizations focused very much on building bridge among TSOs and DSOs. And today's conference is an evidence that the bridge really exists. And my intention today is to provide you some framework for further discussion. And I hope that the points I like to provide you and maybe concept will help you to really not only enjoy today's session, but also to provide you maybe a different perspective which can help participants to understand and maybe to evaluate the importance of partnership, innovations, and customer-centric approach. Let me adjust the camera because I think it's better. So we all know the 3D model, as I'm used to saying: decarbonization, decentralization, and digitalization. It's not nothing new. It's not new aspect, but that's the basic framework we all keep in mind. But let me introduce the mission of DSOs, which we understand, or how we understand our mission in EDSO. So I think that the first point, we promote neutral, market neutral role of DSOs in Europe. The second point, we like to be very trusted voice of all European DSOs, including the small one. The third pillar, we are promoting innovation on all the levels of our work, and we try to also welcome other partners to participate in innovation process and to feel like a real partners. Because the last point I wish to highlight, that customers must understand us not as a supplier or not as a service company, but as a real partner. And I think that that's the most important mindset. And I hope that we have proven that we have already changed the mindset towards the customers. What we can expect, or what customers can expect from us, that we are reliable, sustainable, we enable launch new technologies, and that we also absorb or adopt the higher portion of renewables. Because the targets I have already mentioned: decarbonization, decentralization, digitalization. Why decarbonization? It's obvious. We are all committed, all Europeans, to fulfillment of common climate targets. Why decentralization? Because part of our mission is to empower customers and to attract them to participate in an active manner in the market. And why digitalization? Because in my opinion and in DSO understanding, digitalization is the way how to make energy transition process real. Because digital networks are the real core of energy transition. If you look at the plan of the European plan, what we have in the center of our activities, as I already said, customers, electrification, and as also was mentioned, sector integration, because we need clean generation, smart grids, and real active market. What we can expect from market side: demand side responsibility, demand side response, flexibility, exchange of data on all the levels, clean mobility, and renewables integration. Without digitalization, we are not able to change the structure of energy sector. We are not able to deliver or to contribute to mission fulfillment. So therefore, I'm coming to the importance of common testing, piloting, and project participation. Why? Because the system must be in every second, must be reliable, must be safe. The service for customers is to be affordable, and we do our business, or we provide our services under some regulatory rules. We are moving in regulatory frameworks, and we keep standard. So that's maybe, it's not surprising, but I think it makes also some constraints for innovation process. And therefore, I wish to say that pilot projects and common innovation activities are important, because these constraints are not limits, or they don't limit us. Otherwise, if we test some new technologies in a real life, we all know that it's impossible. Why projects? Because projects help us to share and exchange know-how. By knowledge sharing, we are able to save the money, to save the sources. By knowledge sharing, we can come to the point when we are pretty sure that the solution we are offering is replicable. It means that it can be used in the European market, and it's not only a lab solution, it's a real life experience. The second point I have already missed.
Richard, can I ask you to come to a close? Sorry.
Okay, so I think that organizations like ENTSO-E and EDSO are enabling other parties to participate in energy transition process and also in innovation process. EU programs like it was mentioned, Horizon and the others, can help us to finance such activities. And last but not least, if we are real partners, and if we test the ability to cooperate and collaborate in the project activities, it could help our ability to collaborate in a real life. And that's maybe the message I like to address to all the participants. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Richard, for underlying the different cooperation elements we envisage, also by actually also saying what important is to create the partnerships and also the innovation frameworks. Thank you very much. So I just recall that please go to Slido. So the Slido link is placed in the chat. I saw some technical questions which were there, so we will come on those questions in the project sessions. And I would like now to pass the floor to Cristobal Irazocchi, the policy officer with the European Commission, DG Energy, the unit Innovation, Research, Digitalization, and competitiveness. So Cristobal, the floor it's yours, and please try to stay in 8-9 minutes.
Okay, I will. Good morning, everybody. I am indeed, my name is Cristobal Irazuki, and just to extend the presentation, I'm also responsible for the Horizon Europe part on energy system grids and storage. I'm coordinating the work program preparation, and I mentioned that one because I'll come to that one on the second part of my presentation. So first things first, thanks for the opportunity to talk today. It's much appreciated. It's always good to be able to deliver a message to such an audience. And I also need to thank to Uros and Richard, because they very nicely introduced what are some of the very important elements for us: partnerships, collaboration among projects, the importance of decarbonization, digitalization, and decentralization. It was already mentioned last week by our commissioner, and it's very important for us, and it's also driving a lot of the work we do in terms of legislation. Like last year, we had the energy system integration, we had the offshore strategy, we had also the hydrogen strategy, and so on. And it will keep driving the efforts we do towards the Fit for 55 package, where we are working on now. That includes things like the revision of the energy efficiency and renewables energy directive, the extension of the ETS, the energy emission trading scheme, or we're also looking at the revision of the energy taxation directive. So just to say that this trend is here to stay, as like Richard mentioned, and it will drive, it's also driving strongly our work around the innovation. What is also very important for us, we are working on the implementation of the clean energy package. Actually, member states are working on implementation, and this is going to be very important for enabling, for creating an enabling framework to replicate and to develop at scale the innovation you've been generating for the last years. So we are very keen to see this happening. And we have big expectations on this one. Now, coming back to the topic of innovation, we won't reach the 2050 targets without innovation. We need a major acceleration in clean energy innovation. That is by now quite clear to almost everybody. I don't say everybody because it's a very big word, but we are in the good direction. And for that one, the Horizon Europe program will soon offer funding opportunities, like mentioned before. We are finally coming to it, and it will support the development and testing. And because testing, I would like to emphasize also, like Richard, it is very important for us, the testing part. Innovative solutions to make our energy systems more sustainable, secure, and competitive. So this is one of the big areas we see for innovation, but it's not the only one. More and more often, we are seeing the role of our research projects as a source of evidence, and where we are using this evidence to underpin the decisions we are taking in terms of which areas we are going to focus, not only in terms of research and innovation, but also in terms of policy. This is becoming increasingly important, and we are feeding this information also to other funding instruments like InvestEU. So please, thanks already for all the help we got on this one, and please keep feeding us with any evidence you find. Now, I've seen in the program there are many of the projects we'll be funding under H2020 and that I often see in Bridge, and I'm very happy to see them there today, because they do reflect the evolution we had in terms of funding and innovation from the H2020, where we, and before actually, where we started more on a technology level, and we've been slowly moving towards promoting collaboration, more system approach, and moving forward, we will even strengthen this idea. We will even push for combining energy carriers, and we'll have to go outside of the electricity. So the partnerships, they're going to be even more complicated or more difficult and even more important, actually, because we will need to to start combining electricity and heating, cooling, and we need to also decarbonize sectors that cannot be electrified. So we'll have to combine them all. There is no way we can do it otherwise. And this brings me to one of my main messages, is that all these solutions we are having, or innovative solutions, they are going to be side by side. We need to get out of the either or logic. There is not going to be a winner that will take all the market. So we'll need all the innovation. So when you are designing them, when you are preparing them, I will encourage to please look at the whole, at the bigger picture, because whatever you are working on will have to work with other things, and it will have to be interoperable. It will have to be combinable, if that word exists in English language. Now, on the Horizon Europe program, it's finally coming. All things normally should come out next week, so fingers crossed. And there will be, on top of the research and innovation days, where you can get more information in general, I would like you to pencil one day in your calendar, which is the 5th of July in the afternoon. We will have the info day for the area I'm coordinating, which is energy system grids and storage, where we've developed together with other DGs. So this is not an energy only. This is something relatively, it's much stronger now on the Horizon Europe, where we are designing all these calls. Now they are call topics with other DGs, and we've been strongly collaborating with Connect, RTD, Move, Klima, and the JRC, among others, to develop these calls. So you will probably feel this one while going through that one. Just to give you one very specific thing, just for the ones that are planning, what we will be presenting, we will have the call deadlines. I'm going to give you information on this one because I can imagine there was some uncertainty around that one. Call deadlines will be for a few of the topics in October this year, and then the bulk of the topics will come next year in January and in April. And in these info days, you will only get information for the ones in October and January, if you are just wondering. Now, what will be the focus of this area? Will for us is primarily the systemic aspects to enhance the flexibility and the resilience of the systems. That is the driving theme, let's say, on this destination. We call it destination now. So I would like to give you like few examples what we'll be funding. I mean, we have over almost 20 calls for over 300 million euro. So there we are hoping there is room for everybody. And one of the calls, just to give an example of the importance of this the integration, is we'll have one topic on sector integration, where we will have over 30 million euro through Portland 3 projects, where we will looking for pilots and practical cases on how to combine different energy carriers, different energy users on a local city or a regional environment. So it really is about going beyond electricity only and extending even more the people you work with. So we really have to stretch ourselves to the limit and build bridges to other energy communities. There will also be another set of calls on grid technologies, things like power electronics, that are increasingly important to integrate renewable generation, superconducting systems, high voltage DC, and of course the cybersecurity that is underpinning all these developments. The more decentralization we have, the more digitalization we have, the more we will need a cybersecure environment. And I don't need to give you the examples of what's been happening in the last couple of weeks. You're probably aware of that one in the US. That is one of them. And since I mentioned digitalization, this is very, very important for us. It is across all the topics. All is a big word again. So most of the topics, interoperability, access to data, they are very important. And specifically for digitalization, we will be supporting new services, new business model, testing of the interoperability of new solutions, increased data availability, and easier data exchange. This will be very important. So interoperability and data exchange will be very important for us. And then a fourth area that is not the last one in the core program is around storage solutions. And we are not talking batteries here, but we are talking thermal, chemical, or mechanical storage, and the integration of this one with the grid. So integration is a key word for us. So it's coming. Have a look at it, and please come to the info days, and I will coordinate it. And with this one, I'm finishing here. I thank everybody for listening at the moment, and I wish you a good and interesting day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cristobal. Thank you very much also for staying in time and for highlighting actually the importance of the innovation for the energy transition and the greener objectives we have in front of us, as well as the announcement of the Horizon Europe calls, which are expected indeed, and we learned that the info day is going to be on 5th of July, especially for our network sector, and the highlights which the Horizon Europe will take for the 2021 and 2022. Thank you very much for this. You answered also to a certain extent one question in the Slido. So we close this introductory session here. And now we move to our project session. Once again, please use the Slido. We are going to hear in this session called Innovating in Asset Management from 4 projects, 2 more TSO oriented, which are going to provide outcomes regarding what Uroš was mentioning in the beginning, the cross-border dimension, the use of the smart solutions for increasing the existing capacity in order to integrate more renewables. Of course, combined with the use of technologies and software solutions. And in the second part, we will hear, so the 2 other projects will look more at the DSO level and also home related appliances. And we will see how actually also on the whole value chain, we can have the source of flexibility for actually moving ahead. So I am going to moderate this session together. So my name is Norela Constantinescu, and I am head of innovation in ENTSO-E, and I am going to moderate this session together with Alex. So Alex, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome also from my side. My name is Alex von Haken. I'm working at ENTSO-BW, which is a distribution system operator in Germany and also an EDSO member. And as such, I'm very happy to be here today and to moderate together with Norela.
Thank you, Alex. So now, without further waiting for other things, so I would like the speakers to really stay in the 10 minutes. Please post your questions in the Slido. The questions, if possible, should be related to the presentation you hear. So we will have the time actually to have the clarification answers when the project is going to be presented. And afterwards, we will have the possibility also to discuss in the panel. So now I will go directly to the first speaker of the Innovating in Asset Management session, who is Mark Norton, Vice President, European Business Development with Smart Wires. And he's going to introduce us in the outcomes of the Flexi Transtore project, one of the Horizon 2020 projects, which was mentioned before by Cristobal. So go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Norela. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As has already been indicated, I'm going to talk to you about the flexibility in smart transmissions with storage entities and large-scale penetration of renewables, Flexi Transtore for short, project. So maybe we can have the next slide, please. So the objectives of the project are twofold. One is to enhance and accelerate the integration of renewables in energy European energy systems. Can you move forward, please? And to also increase cross-border electricity flows in Europe. And combined, if we move forward, we see that this will hit the strategic objectives that we've set ourselves if we can look at flexible energy grids and sources, and also not only looking at sort of the network side, but also looking at the market side. So the project as a whole combines across a number of different areas. And I think we heard from both Euros and Richard and Cristobal that you know, we need a lot of players working collectively in order to make this happen. Not one single technology will make it. So can we move forward, please? Maybe just bring up the 5 bullet points. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we've got to look at a number of different areas. So we've got to look across the energy value chain. I'll show on another slide more diagrammatically the demos that we're looking at, but we have a number 5 in total in this area. The transmission grid itself, so within the transmission grid, but also the distribution grid. We've looked beyond the transmission grid into that interface into the distribution grid, and recognizing that you need to span across the entire network. Touching on conventional generators and how can we get more out of those existing units, and in this particular instance, looking at phase system stabilizers, but also the market integration over the whole. So if we can go to the next slide, I'll maybe show those in a different way. So here we actually have a sort of a map, if you like, of the grid as a whole, from production through the transmission system, the distribution system, down to the end consumers. I know that there's a lot of generation in the distribution systems across the entire area, but for simplicity, we've shown it this way. And you can see that we have 8 demonstration projects in the FlexiTranStor package as a whole, stretching across all different areas. So we are looking at both how the consumers can influence onto the grid and help the transmission system operator, and ultimately the distribution system operator as well. How we can make much better use of the transmission system itself in a couple of key areas, and with dynamic line rating and power flow control, which I'll talk about as well. But also that T to D interface, that transmission to distribution interface, and looking at if we were to looking at putting batteries in this instance there to try and support that and make a better use of both of those networks. And then some of those transmission technologies we know can also be used in the distribution network itself, and you can see that they can actually stretch between the two. But overarching all of that, it's no good just having those services available. It's no use just creating those demonstration projects to get the network capability. You also need to be able to make best use of that in the market. And we've tried to marry those two things. 1, provide the service, but 2, also show how you're going to make better use of it and what you need to develop in that area. So maybe we can have the next slide, and I'll just talk a little bit about each of those demonstrations. Just to talk a little bit about where we are, we were, want to try and understand what it is we were trying to achieve, where we are at the moment, and when we expect to complete our work in that area, and how what we've actually managed to achieve during that period of time. So a very quick tour de force. The new wholesale market approach, which is looking at those flexibility services. So this is how we're actually going to use these devices in the real market. Has actually used real live players that have volunteered to go into a sandbox, a standalone market model, and that was set up in August of 2019, and the results have concluded recently in April of this year. We've also looked at advanced control for flexible synchronous generation. So what we're looking at here is, can we actually adapt the stabilizers on the devices in order to try and dampen unwanted responses on the grid? That's gone through its successful trials, and the cabinet, the brain, the thing that's actually going to interface between both the existing generator and the stabilizer and make real life adjustments has already been produced after gone through the successful testing, and that'll be put into service in it was put into service in April 21. Maybe get the next slide, please. Can we have the next? Thank you. And you'll see it's an auspicious time from the times that I'll be talking about on all of these demos. The active distribution node is the T2D interface that I mentioned previously, and installing battery technology in there, BESS technology. We have that on site now. It is all the equipment is in place, and the commissioning is expected this month. Wind power plant connected to active substations. Yet again, what we're trying to look at here is the better use of those existing players that are in the field, and can we actually get them to provide some flexible regulation to the TSOs to help manage the network in real time. That's gone through factory acceptance testing. It's on its way to Greece, where it will be installed. It'll actually be installed very near Santa, which I'll mention on one of the other projects, the power flow control device. Yet again, this is due this month to be put into service. Maybe we can have the next slide. Thank you. So in this particular one, what we're looking at here is hardware in the loop operation. So the flexible substations using advanced controls and services demonstration. So now that you've got all of these different devices are connected to the system, there's a number of different things that you may wish to control. How do you combine them together to get the most out of it? So we've talked a little bit about the market, but now we're talking a little bit about how you manage it on the network size of things. And we've gone through the successful testing and for those substation demos. So it is a hardware in the loop system, and as a direct result, that's been tested in February of 2019. But now it's a question of moving it into a demonstrator project, monitoring the performance and analysis. Yet again, it's actually happening this month. So yet again, as I said, it's a very key time, a pivotal time for this project. A lot of things are starting, a lot of things are coming to conclusion. We're getting a lot of results. With all innovations, not everything goes to plan, and the large-scale storage system and combined cycle plant project has at this point in time been discontinued. It was looking to try and fit in battery technology into an existing combined cycle gas turbine. Due to the cost-benefit analysis that was actually able to be investigated more full, and therefore we have interesting results from that perspective. The cost-benefit analysis didn't look to be positive, so that was closed down in 2019. And now can I go to the last slide, please? Can I have the last slide, please? Thank you. And to talk about the final two projects, which are embedded in the transmission system, but equally able to work in the distribution system as well. We have the dynamic line rating project that was looking at increasing the resilience of cross-border lines using sensor technology that's mounted on, but not only just looking at DLR, but also looking at de-icing and how they may be able to do that. We had a first demonstration project in April of 2020 and later in October in Slovenia and Bulgaria, respectively. The achievements have been very good in that respect, and in the fact that we've got results coming through showing a 2% or a 1.5% accuracy, and ice prediction has been shown. The final one I'm going to talk about is power flow control, my own personal project, and we have installed the smart wires technology into both Greece in May of 2019, where it worked very successfully, and I can announce yesterday we energized in Bulgaria, and we're seeing that that's working well. In the Greece situation, we were able to show that we could connect that within half a day outage. We've matched that in Bulgaria. We were also able to show a 30% reduction on line loading through the use of the devices. They're able to change the power flow control in the existing grid by changing the line impedance effectively, and that has proven to be quite successful. So in summary, those 8 projects that I've talked about have covered the full gambit, the full range across the transmission and distribution network, and have been shown that they can interlock together, they can work combined, we can produce a market that will make best use of them. And we've already got a proven set of results from many of those demos, and we're at a very interesting time where we'll get even more confirmation of that. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for your attention now, and hand it back to Narella and Alex.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for this presentation. So for the moment, actually there is a question for you coming from Gunnar Kastel regarding the CGT plant. If you have considered the option of using combined heat and power mode as heat storage functionality.
I don't believe we have, but it's an interesting comment to make, and I'll take that back to the team. Thank you.
And Mark, also a question from my side. So you test different technologies, different solutions in the demos. From what you have seen until now, because the project is coming, so it's approaching its end, what do you think would be the solution which can be used at a larger scale? So I saw that there were tests for instance, in Greece and Bulgaria, then in Cyprus and Slovenia. So what do you think is the most promising technology?
An awkward question to answer, bearing in mind I'm a work package leader. I think that we've been quite successful in 2 or 3 of the demo projects. So certainly I can say the DLR has proven to be quite successful in the results it's actually seen, particularly in looking at things like the ice accretion. I think our own project from Power Flow Control has worked very well. We've proven that we can move it from one location to the other using the same device at different voltage levels, rapid to install and move. So I think from that perspective, we've got a very good set of responses from that. And I also think that the phase shifting stabilizing approach, not shifting, sorry, phase system stabilizing approach is very interesting as well. You know, the ability to make better use of what you already have is obviously a key tenet of the European Commission. And that's another angle that we can definitely deploy. So hopefully that gives you a little insight.
Thank you, Mark. And in order to get more actually from the audience, there is a question from Carlo Degli Esposti. It's more about the regulatory frameworks. So the question is how you estimate the testing phase in time. So in time, you answered a little bit through my question, but the testing phase and how you see the regulatory frameworks helping actually for pushing actually these solutions.
Do you mean moving them from, when you say testing, you don't mean testing the devices in the ground, you mean moving them from a demo to real life?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is always the challenge. I mean, you know, it is a question really of risk management. You know, the system operators quite rightly, you know, they've got the security supply of the system to be concerned about and the well-being of their economies, want to be absolutely certain. I think a recognition of a demo needing to pass a certain bar which is universally agreed by system operators as being adequate, would be a very strong next step, because it then gives security. It says that all system operators collectively have actually deemed that this technology is ready for moving into the system proper and to be used on the main system. I think the ENTSO-E Technopedia is a good step in that direction as well. I think it really sort of cements that, you know, we've all looked at this, we're all happy that this has reached a level of maturity. And the TRLs are quite evident behind it. So that's, to me, is the real key. It's giving the system operators a defense when they actually speak to people on the ground, defined as tried and tested, politicians, decision makers, and regulatory authorities who are quite rightly concerned to make sure the technology is well tested and proven before moving forward. And it means that what I found in the past is when one person does it and it's a success on the live system, then immediately everyone follows, and it's just getting that ability to get the first one onto the system. So I hope that answers in some way.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark, and thank you for the questions in the Slido. For time's sake, so we pass now to the second intervention of this session. Mr. Anastasis Tsumpas, the head of unit electrical power and energy system with the UBTech, and the Far Cross project coordinator. So Anastasis, please, 10 minutes.
Thank you, Norella, very much. And thank you for the invitation and introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to introduce you FACROS project. FACROS has to do with facilitating regional cross-border electricity transmission through innovation. So, what is the aim of FACROS? The main aim of FACROS is to connect major stakeholders of the energy value chain around Europe, and especially demonstrate integrated hardware and software solution that will facilitate the unlocking of the resources for the cross-border electricity flows and, of course, the regional cooperation. We have 31 partners from 14 different EU member states in FACROS, as well as 2 associate countries, partners from 2 associate countries. And I can say that it's a heavily industry-driven project, because we have 8 transmission system operators, 2 energy producers, 3 market operators, 3 power systems equipment manufacturers, service and technology providers, and of course, research partners. If you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So, which are the objectives of the FACROS project? The first objective is to test these state-of-the-art technologies and to install these technologies in the power grid and communication infrastructure, such as power flow controllers, dynamic line rating sensing systems, and wide area monitoring systems. Another objective is to develop and introduce advanced software solutions. For example, for capacity allocation and reserve optimization tools, as well as advanced forecasting of energy production and the smart response. In addition, an important objective of FACROS is to design and propose a robust set of technical and market codes, so-called pathways, in order to enable the building up of the harmonization of the network codes and the integration of national electricity markets. We also focus the work on the design of and implementation of a cost-benefit analysis tool based on the outcomes and the lessons learned from the project implementation and the demos, of course, and enhancing the planning of cross-border infrastructure investments. In addition, we try to demonstrate these hardware and software technologies and all the relevant concepts in realistic environments by engaging TSOs and energy producers in 8 countries. So the countries that we have the demonstrations are Austria, Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, Croatia, Hungary, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Albania. And last but not least, FACROS objective is to facilitate further research and new market opportunities across the energy industry by ensuring efficient dissemination of the FACROS outcomes to the key stakeholders. If we go to the next slide, please. Thank you. In this slide, we can see the 5 FACROS demonstrators and demonstration countries in the Southeast Europe. First of all, we have on top of the slide the MPFC demo, so-called unlocking cross-border capacity with modular power flow control solutions. The main goals are to design and customize a power flow control solution for inter-TSO demonstration, to increase the cross-border network transfer capacity, to reduce renewables curtailment, and of course to test the ability how we can increase the market coupling with these modular power flow control solutions. The second demonstrator in our project is a complex grid management technology for handling cross-border transmission line capacity related issues, so-called DLR-HTM. Aims to develop and integrate DLR techniques and health monitoring systems, to demonstrate a complex grid management technology for the available surplus transfer capacity, to identify potential improvements of different way of measurements of the line rating sensors in order to utilize better the limited cross-border capacities, and to review the required features for sensor testing protocols and integrated systems, mainly towards the standardization of the systems. The WAMS demo tries to increase power system security in scenarios with increasing share of renewables by enhancing fault detection capabilities at regional level. In addition to identify and apply methods for identification, measurement, and damping inter-area oscillations, and to design and develop a communication architecture for the real-time measurements. The European demo is a pan-European deep modeling framework for improved system operation, planning, forecasting, and analysis in the inter-TSO level. So what is the main goal of the European demo? Mainly to develop improved renewables generation and demand response forecasting algorithms and calculation tools in order to minimize the variability resources in the network. Improve operation planning, forecasting, introduce innovative short-term and long-term forecasting engines. Of course, important goal is to deliver better network security margins and increase the level of the observation abilities, enable additional resources for grid balancing services, and of course, to support the participation of energy stakeholders with diverse portfolios in intraday real-time markets. Last but not least, the OptimCamp demo, the optimized cross-border capacity auction algorithm, aims to review required features for a optimized cross-border transmission capacity allocation market, to develop a optimized market design for energy reserve auctions for cross-zonal capacity, to identify improvements for calculating transmission capacity requirements for reserve allocation. Of course, at the end, will develop a scalable high-performance prototype will be developed for the optimized approach of auctioning the available transmission capacity to both energy and reserve allocation, based on a bit matching algorithm formula. If you could go to the next slide, please. So what about the FACROS methodology? The overall approach and methodology of the FACROS project offers the creation of a common concept at the end, which will enable the coordinated efforts between TSOs and energy producers through the adoption of multiple technological innovations. And first of all, we proceed with an in-depth analysis of the regulatory framework, both in countries that are represented in the consortium, but also other countries across Europe, in order to produce a cost-benefit analysis and allow a secure and reliable operation of TSOs and energy producers in both regional and European level. At the same time, cross-border market and technical codes are being reviewed. So, to allow this real-life application of future market design and services. And the blending of all these assets, we could say, not only assets, but also technologies, the analysis, is envisioned that will optimize the operation, safeguard the investments, and allow introduction of new services to cover the needs of more stakeholders in the energy value chain. If you could go to the next slide, please. And a few words regarding the impact. The FACROS projects support the competitive energy markets, builds regional cooperation, strengthen short-term markets, increase cross-border trading opportunities, improve resilience, strengthens risk prevention, and increases security of supply. And of course, supports the ambition of the clean energy package, meeting the EU objectives for decarbonization, global technology leadership, growth, and integration. And with this, I would like to thank you for the floor. Marella.
Thank you very much, Anastasis. So I do not see any questions in Slido. Maybe for the sake of time, I will pass directly now to Alex, and then we will come at the end in a panel discussion where I will ask you about if you quantify this impact you showed on the last slide. Thank you very much. Alex, to you.
Thank you, Norella. I'd like to introduce to you now Stavroula Tsioka, who's our next panelist and who is the leader of the Greek demo of the Horizon 2020 project Platona. And I'm very curious to hear now how the Platona platform combines optimized network operation with local flexibility markets. So Stavroula, I don't see you yet on screen, but I think you will be there in a minute.
I hope so, because I turned black.
All right. I think maybe you can just start like this with the presentation, and I hope maybe your video gets back on after a minute.
Let me try it once more. Oh, okay.
Perfect. We see you now.
Here I am. I think you can see me now. Okay, good.
Perfect. The floor is yours.
So thank you, Alex. Thank you for the introduction, and good morning to everybody. So being in the session about asset management, I'd like to introduce you about how Platona innovates in asset management. Platona is like in the second year of its life, so it finishes August 2023. So I'll show you also a bit of results that we have so far. So as all like European projects, I think, where DSOs are involved in, we're using existing assets, the network itself, and the renewable energy sources and installations that are there, but also we're introducing new assets that will complement the existing distribution network assets. So per demo, we can see that in Italy, we'll have new smart meters and new storage systems and micro PVs to be installed in the households of participants in the demo. And also light node. On the far left-hand side, you can see it on the bottom in its residential version, and the top in its industrial version, which is a device that gathers metering data and also is able to receive activation requests and pass them to the local EMS. In Greece, we'll install low-cost phaser metering units with the aim to improve network observability, key to address any issues of the network. And finally, in Germany, a new storage system will be installed as well as a smart secondary substation equipped with the PMU for metering accuracy, and all set up for a local community there. And the resources there will be managed by ALFC, Avacon Local Flex Controller, a system developed to monitor and control and also do forecasts of generation and consumption of the community. So in the next slide, you will see the Platonic interoperable architecture, which is the asset itself. It's the key exploitable result of Platona project. So I won't get into details because the schematic is quite complicated, but what I wanted to show is that in the blue boxes inside, you can see the Platona market platform, where a market can be established with all the services that it can provide. The Platona DSO technical platform, with a lot of services for the DSO and also able to incorporate new services that the DSO needs. And the blockchain access platform, part of the blockchain access layer, which is there to ensure security, data security, secure transactions, and any data transfers. What I wanted to point out is, like, on the right hand side, you can see all the DSO legacy systems, and on the bottom, like the DMS that every DSO has, or databases, controllers. And on the bottom side, you can see the physical infrastructure, like physical assets, batteries, PVs already in the network. And that is what we want to show, that all existing assets come and get coupled with the new Platona platforms that the project is developing. And actually, that's the power of the project. I think that we are now, I think, in Europe, 2,500 DSOs with different complexities, sizes, and different type of users. So the Platona architecture comes to be interoperable and being able to interface with any systems that the DSO has. So in the next slide, we'll see the technologies that Platona uses in order to unlock flexibility. So on the right-hand side, like just core technologies, the IT platforms just described, the blockchain access technology already mentioned, and the open source framework as the powerful aspect of the project, and also some more specific, demo-specific technologies. In the Italian demo, the aim is to include, to achieve like maximum customer inclusion, where the customer actively participates in the market. So they're looking at creating a complete end-to-end TSO-DSO flexible market. And the customer has like this innovative customer EMS live node that enables him to participate actively. The Greek demo, innovative flexibility services are looking at reducing or even preventing the risk containment, and based on a variable network tariffs model that National Technical University of Athens is developing. As a prerequisite, we need advanced network observability and see how the network is in near real time, and that's where state estimation comes into play, and the PMUs to provide like data from the grid so that the algorithm provides a good estimate of the grid. In the German demo, focus is on the community, how the community can achieve energy sharing and maximization of self-consumption. So a local energy management system needs to be built, and ALSI, as already described, a state-of-the-art local measurement and control solution is being developed. Then I'll introduce you to a few use cases, just handpicked some of them. So in the next slide, we'll see in the German demo. So the German demo, I think, is they are almost completed use case one, which looks at how the community will maximize the self-consumption, let's say achieve a virtual idling, and a straight impact that reduce the stress in the Envoy network. So far, some key learning points came out. So Envoy network seemed that already is at its limits. So action should be taken, and it seems like Platona came just at the right time. And the maximized self-consumption that has already been seen means decreased generation peaks, so less stress in the grid connection point. At the second stage, German demo will look if the community can act as a virtual power plant. So effectively, if a can respond straight to the DSO if they set a kilowatt target value. Then the German demo will look if the community can actually forecast energy deficits or surplus, and in that sense have achieved provide energy to the grid or retrieve energy from the grid. But the key there is that there will be predefined time slots, so this can assist the DSO in the planning and the day-to-day operation. I'll then present for the Greek demo in the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, can we change the slide, please? Hello. Yep.
For me, it
just yeah,
changed
this
already.
one. Okay, yeah, that's it. So yeah, I'll just show you 2 out of the 4 use cases for the Greek demo, but because they're almost complete, so there are some interesting results there. So the state estimation tool that ENTSO-E has developed for the purpose of the Greek demo is looking basically to the algorithm itself, considers the measurements that are available and tries to provide voltage, magnitude, and angle for the nodes, like the unknown nodes of the network that they're not measured, so that we have a clear view of the grid. So in the use case 1, the algorithm considered only the pre-existing metering infrastructure, that is the SCADA measurements and the AMR meters, while in the use case 2, there's addition of the 20 PMUs that are going to be installed in selected nodes of the pilot site. Of course, in the use case 2, we have increased number of actual measurements, so less pseudo measurements are required. And in both use cases, we looked at how the accuracy is affected and what is the convergence of the algorithm. So in the final slide, I'll show you quickly just a result to give you an idea. So we have defined the KPI of how good our estimate was. So basically how far we are from the actual voltage magnitude compared to the estimated one. In these 2 graphs, we see basically in the x-axis the 350 nodes of the test grid, and each of the lines, 168, represent 1 hour for the week. It's obvious that on the right-hand side, where the PMU data is integrated, the error between the estimated and the actual is much less. And that's even more powerful if you think that the y-axis is the scale is 1%, while on the left-hand side is 10%. So yeah, that's a good result. Also, it shows us the importance of the assets. Thank you for your attention, and I would welcome any questions.
Thank you, Saruda, for this comprehensive presentation and for staying perfectly in time. There are 2 questions coming in. 2 from Gunnar Kestler. I will start maybe with the last one. Regarding the state estimator, how many measured nodes do you need for calculating the state estimation in the distribution grid, which is always a very interesting question.
How many, wait, let me show this, see this as well.
How many measured nodes for the state estimation in the distribution grid? So how many measurement nodes for the state estimation? 20 households, yeah, or only the feeder?
Observability. I'll respond by memory because I haven't developed the algorithm myself, and like ENTSO-E have developed and see all the results. As far as I can remember, I think it's like 30%. I don't know, but I'm reluctant to give this number because I don't know if Mr. Castley is like an expert on the field, so I don't want to say something that it's very out of the range. But I can definitely take the question away and come back to you with and have a response from Mr. Xigis, who developed this for ENTSO-E.
That sounds
I can probably
good.
add it in the chat. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And then there's another question, which I also know from other projects concerning flexibility in the distribution network, from Carlo Degli Esposti. He asks if the maximization of self-consumption and sharing of inside the energy community have been cross-checked with the German regulatory incentives. I'm not sure you are expert in the regulatory incentives in Germany, but maybe you can still take the question.
Yes, again, I think I'll take that again away, so apologies for that, to Benjamin, who's responsible for the German demo, and see whether they have considered that. Yeah, I don't want to say something that apologies for that. I wanted to just dig into the Greek demo only, as I wanted to give like a bit of idea of what the baton is as general.
That sounds perfect. Sure
yeah.
I think we do have the both names of the people who asked the questions, and Gunnar Kessler thanked already you for calling him an expert in the field. So I think it's perfectly fine if you come back with the information afterwards. It's very specific questions, so I think it's normal that you cannot cover everything. But it seems that you have sparked interest for the demos, also not only in Greece but also in Germany and Italy. So it worked perfectly fine. Now there are no new questions. Thank you, Stavroula, for your presentation. And we will move on to the next presentation of an Horizon 2020 project. David Ruhr will present to us the project Interconnect, which is all about interoperability, the foundation for smart energy management and smart grids. So David, I'm really excited to hear your presentation. Please take the virtual floor. We do not hear you yet. We see you. Not yet, I'm afraid. Did you choose the right headphones in the... Yes, okay. Maybe you can try without your headphones. Oh, perfect. We hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, perfectly.
I just muted and unmuted.
Ahead.
Typical trick for other tools. Okay, thank you very much for inviting us to be here for the Interconnect project. So basically, I'm representing here a project that has a lot of things that were already mentioned here from the previous presentations, considering the energy and the ICT domains. Actually, the Interconnect project is a very large project, as you will see, involving a lot of entities. Crossing bridge with the different domains of ICT and energy. So here in this slide, you have our basic impacts on the project. So we're developing a lot of ICT related tools to support energy and non-energy applications for the building domain and also to the grid domain. So we include these both domains as something where services and systems will be deployed on large industries that you will see in a moment. But basically, one of our missions is, of course, to accelerate the interoperability between systems and devices in a way that can allow us to develop services that are completely interoperable and less dependent on closed solutions, with many advantages, as many of us know. So basically, we'll be building up energy apps, services, and within devices and systems that are connected. So at the end, one of our main purposes is to outreach in terms of the energy side, in terms of performance, in terms of efficiency, of integration of renewables, and so forth. In between, to deal with other applications such as electric mobility, but also to tackle the issues of the non-energy front, namely the comfort, which is something that it's on the top of our agenda, but also how can we use data and other systems to leverage the advantages that we can have on using this kind of solutions, generally spoken, to a broader audience. So in between, we are applying a user-centric perspective to develop the services and systems. And hopefully we'll be reaching out for a marketplace for these services at the EU perspective, as most of the developments done, if not almost all, are public. So everything that the project will develop will be made available to the general audience. Basically, the project at the first stage as early adopters, Then we also have a cascading funding as a finance support to third parties to join within also to the project to be able also to develop tools and solutions with the project and also specifically to their own applications that they have. Either demonstrations that they can have, also small-scale implementations of products and services. It's also tied together with our approach. And ultimately, as you will see in the next slide, we have outcomes that we need to reach. So to deal with these outputs, we need to focus on this user-centric perspective. We need to create the conditions for the marketplace. And to create these conditions for the marketplace means that we need to go through to this different digital technologies such as peer-to-peer, blockchain, IoT-based platforms, and so forth, in a way that they could fit each other very nicely. I've seen a good images at the beginning, which I will take as an example, as a Lego system. Basically, following all of them together to make sure we create this ground for the implementation of the services that ultimately will actually engage several stakeholders. That's the main purpose. This interoperable and replicable approach also applies to the grid side. So one of the things that we're developing is services also for the grid to look what the demand can do in terms of supporting the grid operation, basically for energy efficiency, flexibility implementation, and so forth. You will see some examples. But all in all, that makes sure that the business use cases that can be assembled together actually are made in a competitive and universal way, so as a transversal perspective. This is only achieved if we create interoperability overall, and we are departing from the SAREF as a methodology-based approach towards the definition of devices and systems as it's widely perceived by several stakeholders, and it's fully open. It's actually sponsored by ENTSO-E. And actually, we're creating the basics for the development of services based on these ontologies. So this should provide standardized approach to the services and to the implementations throughout of the project and also beyond the project. As I also referred previously, one of the things that the project is also very keen on is actually to promote engagement with other pilots. So in the next slide, talking about pilots, we have a quick view on what are the main pilots that we have in the project. So we are composed of several large pilots incoming from different parts of Europe, where each of the pilots have their own specific theme. So I won't go into much detail, just to tell you that although we're dealing in each one of them with buildings and other domains, and buildings domestic and non-domestic in the sense of tertiary and some industrial buildings in which we will be deploying these ICT platforms to support these different services. The idea is that not only we are able to show that the solutions developed, for instance, in Portugal are easily applicable in Belgium and so forth, but also that specificities of each of these pilots are dealt appropriately. So we have on a specific case in Italy, for instance, we have the support to social housing as the building support of these solutions, but also specific cases in Belgium that deals with residential, non-residential, but also in the side of community. So this is going through the different themes that we now see from the Commission and also associated with the Green Deal that we intend to demonstrate at a large scale in the pilots of the project. So basically, this is to give you an idea that afterwards, even other entities willing to support us and to participate even in this pilot, they will be able to do so, because we will launch at the end of this year sub-calls within the project to support other developments from other partners outside the consortium willing to adhere to this interoperability framework, and coming from several domains. Calls will be announced soon, so stay tuned to our site to know a bit more about that. So in the next slide, just to give you a perspective of what it is our DNA. So we are a very large consortium ranging from R&D, consultancy, manufacturers, associations, then providers of technology, DSOs, retailers, and of course the end users. Although in this case the end users, we're referring to stakeholders that cluster end use of energy from the side of end consumption from domestic buildings, but also from the tertiary side, which is the case for instance of Sonai. So this is just to show how much we have in terms of the consortium. So the developments are done from the manufacturer's also perspective. In the interoperability approach, as you will see in the following slides, are made basically to ensure that compliance is achieved from many angles. These are just the milestones of the project for future reference. We're now halfway to 2021, and we're in fact a few months of releasing the serialized approach that we have on the project, and the digital platforms will be launched by the end of this year. The first pool of digital platforms will be launched to be accessible by every interested stakeholder or partner willing to use the solutions that we're developing here. So the use cases, many of them already are common to those already presented here. Electric mobility, for instance, is one of the use cases that we are highly invested, mainly because it does represent a comprehensive framework of application towards several domains: the end user, which is the owner of the EV, the platform management system for the EV chargers, which is also an interested party here in making sure that the EVs are charged there, and also the grid side and other stakeholders that can benefit from the flexibility from the EVs. So this is a lot ground to cover, but this is just one of the examples of a set of use cases related with electric mobility that we're very keen on supporting. The idea is, of course, that this is done in a transparent way, in the sense that everyone willing to develop also solutions, for instance, for electric mobility or for energy management within buildings, can use, once again, the tools that we have in the project. We will be creating also the background for this interoperable marketplace for development. So those willing also to develop their own solutions will be able to post in our marketplace of solutions and services to outreach not only the project but also the specific developments that each of the interested stakeholders willing to adhere to the project may have. So we're also preparing the pilots, more to come soon. You can find also in our YouTube channel some videos just to explain a bit better what it is that we are actually reaching out for each of the pilots. But ultimately, and to close my presentation, I will spend a bit 1 minute more in the next slide, just to show how we are reaching out for this interoperability. So basically, what you can see here in yellow is this interoperability grounds in which we need to have different stakeholders developing to make sure we reach out to an understanding where the information exchange by the different stakeholders is perceivable, interpretable, and reusable by the service that intends to support. So we're bridging out here, and we have one specific concept which is not new, but we're actually leveraging on that, which is the universal adapter, to which you can adapt the different devices, systems, either sensors, either they are white goods such as dishwashers, washing machines, EV chargers, and so forth, back to the level of the management platforms. But the idea is just to make sure that we reach out this interconnection framework, in the sense that every information exchange back and forth is very well defined and very well perceived. So a washing machine is a washing machine, an energy management system is an energy management system, but you can then define the boundary of the interoperability. It's basically related to the frontier to which you're making your information available to your third parties. So this is just to show you that we are looking at the different domains, the energy domain once again, and the ICT domain, but also including many things related with the service to be provided. You can find two services here just for the sake of highlighting here for this discussion. The energy forecasting as a service, which is also that we're developing to be in a serialized way, that whichever is the forecasting background that you have, you can still make it interoperable. And also the flexibility service that has then a grounds towards the creation of that service that is fully interoperable, that you represent the intrinsicies of that service in a universal way that is easily perceived by everyone. So this is the challenge that we have. I'm closing this slide just telling that you can get to know more from our site, and we are happy to have other interactions with interested stakeholders beyond our own consortium. So thank you very much once again for the invitation, and I'm open to any questions that you may have from the audience.
Thank you, David, for this fascinating insight in interconnect and the word of interoperability, which is a really interesting word in itself. So there is one question from Gunnar Kessler in the Slido. He asked if you could elaborate a little bit more on the standardization recommendations you mentioned on one slide. Is this possible?
It is. One of the things that we're actually contributing is actually to the extension of the Saref ontology. Saref is also has been growing with the support of ENTSO-E to other domains. So Saref started to be pretty much oriented towards a universal representation of devices and systems, but now it's growing for other domains. So it's actually being fed in from the devices to other domains, which also includes, for instance, the building domain and also the grid domain. So extensions such as Saref for building and Saref for energy, it's something that ENTSO-E is also doing. What we are from our side doing is also to contribute more towards the definition of the services themselves, because these are the basic pieces to build up what we believe to be the business cases for users to have. And users, they mean not only those that have the buildings, but also those that take advantage of those services. So yes, definitely the contribution is being made also aligned with ENTSO-E in making sure that whatever you represent as a service, I just gave 2 examples, forecast, for instance, and energy flexibility, that it's done on an interoperable way, that whichever is that the domain that you decide to start depicting and having your systems available for third parties to also participate, for instance, in flexibility markets, that you have a way to represent them properly, being them, again, EVs, sets of EVs, buildings where you have EVs also being controlled and managed. The frontier is in which that you can have the information concerning energy flexibility available for someone else to make use of that. That can be quite complex, but it will suffice to say that our focus is on creating this interoperable representation on the domains.
Thank you for this insight, David. I see no further questions, and as the time is quite advanced, I would like to thank already now all 4 panelists for your 4 presentations, which were really diverse and really enlightening, and would like now to move on to the debate. Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody. And back to Norella. Besides Norella, we would like to do together the debate with you. And I believe we have a starting question ready.
Yes, thank you, Alex. We will go now a little bit into the question which I asked for Anastasis, actually. Cristobal was mentioning today the need for evidence. So we move with all these projects also into an evidence-based framework. So I would like to ask you, all of you, and please keep it 1 minute per intervention, if we can, before going to Slido, I suggest, Alex, so if you can tell us from your point of view about this session, which is focused on the assets, so which is the outcome you expect from your project in the terms of using the existing assets combined with all the digital technologies, with the interoperability, with the architecture, Saref, SGAM, and so on. So which is your takeaway for the future? How much we can use the existing assets, and if we actually will have an impact on them? And I would like to start with Mark.
Thanks, Norella. I suppose from my perspective, I mean, very simply put, my experience working on the transmission system for quite some time, and my discussions with other colleagues, is the fact that, you know, we're using about 30% of the available capacity on the transmission grid. So there's a 70% out there that's not being used. We won't get all of that, but there is a vast potential that we can tap into if we can optimize the use of the networks. And if we can stabilize the systems in order to get that much higher capacity. It comes with its challenges, don't get me wrong. I think a number of the technologies that have been presented here today will allow us to bite into that, to get some of that capacity. And I would imagine that we could optimize the networks for the future, make most use of the assets we have now, but if we're very clever about it, we can also use some of the more versatile, flexible, fast-acting technologies to be able to also make best use of new assets as they come on. We know we're going to need new lines and new stations, but what we're looking for is technology that allows us to continually extract the best out of the networks as they come. That's the only way we're going to hit our targets. It's the only way we're going to get over the line. And there's certainly some that are out there at the moment that can do that in a very cost-effective manner. So that's my 2 penneth worth.
Thank you very much, Mark, for that. From your point of view, Anastasis, so from FARCROSS point of view, but also your point of view, what do you think about the impact and the services, for example, you have identified in FARCROSS from this use of the asset through the cross-border dimension? Briefly, 1 minute.
Yes, thank you, Nareda. In FARCROSS, we have identified many targets related to the impact, and we have tried to identify specific KPIs to quantify them. For example, we have target values on increase in available cross-border power flows using digital technologies, 10% increase in cross-border capacity, or increase in cross-border transfer capacity using power flow controllers, approximately 40 megawatts within project boundaries. Other targets is regarding the market, for example, increase the order book depth by 20% or decrease the price sensitivity by 10%. The demos are currently in the starting, let's say, phase. And based on the preliminary results of the simulations, also we have some very good, let's say, news. For example, in the Greece-Bulgaria borders, the initial, let's say, result shows that the congestion lines could be impacted by approximately 20% with introducing this modular power flow controller systems and other digital technologies. So I think within this next new year, where the demonstrations will run, we'll have very valuable answers on that.
Thank you very much, Anastasis. I think I will improvise a little bit now because the time it's short. So for the rest of the projects, maybe we can, because we have heard interoperability, we have heard architectures, we have heard also modeling for rest forecast, but also load profiles. So I will go back now to Alex, and we probably can run the poll.
All right, thank you, Norella. So we would like to open up this discussion now and make all the participants join their opinion. And we have prepared a poll in Slido. You can find it in Slido below the poll, on the poll side. And there is one question towards all of you, all of the participants. Which of the following items you believe is most important as an RDI, research, development, and innovation priority focus to achieve the highest impact in the energy transitions? And there are 5 items proposed: digital technologies and their integration into the existing assets, new asset-based technologies as a second item. The third one are smart technologies to maximize grid observability, controllability, and condition monitoring. The fourth item is to enhance the existing models for better forecasts and profiles for loads and for distributed energy systems. And the final one is the integration of existing architectures of different ecosystems for power networks and energy efficiency. So I think each of the items were today presented in one or several of the presentations. Maybe you could have forged yourself an opinion on it, and we would be very happy if you would share this opinion with us to a more inspiring discussion with the panelists afterwards, if there is still 1 minute for this. So I think we now have 1 minute maybe, so you can answer the poll, and we see the participation number of the poll going up, which is very nice. And I'm curious to see the results in 1 minute. The vote number is still going up. We wait some more. I think we can pursue maybe from here because we already see a quite clear winner. 74% voted for smart technologies for grid observability, controllability, and condition monitoring. The second item is also quite advanced with 47% digital technologies, integration into existing assets. So maybe I would be interested to hear maybe Stavroula and David a short answer if you as a DSO representatives in today's session, and also because you innovate in those two items and technologies, if you have the same opinion, or if you would say another prioritization is more paramount to your opinion. So maybe Stavroula, could you tell us your opinion on this vote, if you have voted or had voted? Wait, you're still mute. 1 second, Stavroula, you're still mute. Please unmute.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just want to say that that was my vote as well, and I think that actually 3 in 1, like, they go hand in hand, because all these technologies that will give us observability and better control of the grid mean actually these technologies that are integrated into the existing systems. So yeah, I think that's where we need to focus, and also condition monitoring can give us like new vision for the maintenance of the assets. And as like Mark also mentioned before, there are a lot of assets that we don't use at their max, or we can definitely use them smarter. So yeah, I think that's where we are at the moment, and that's where we need to focus.
Great, so you share the opinion of our attendees. Nice, thank you. Maybe David, would you like to add something to this discussion?
Hello. Yes, I have to agree with all of my colleagues also here from the panel. But this part of finding ways of having digital technologies to have more information about the grid and other domains, it's paramount. It's what allows hopefully in the near future to develop actual services that are useful for several stakeholders. And one of the things that we're also keen on is on how on looking on how technology can help on valorizing the information that we may have. Sometimes lacking in the case of the grid, there are some limitations, but we can find smart ways to circumvent those limitations. The point at hand is if we have the necessary interoperability and approaches to make this as readily available for anyone interested to develop their own R&D, and especially to focus on the innovation points to be able to bring it into the market. And also that's the concern that we have, to make sure that we tie it all together, and interoperability for us is the way to pursue this. So in all, I have to agree with what was said already previously here. Of course, this is very specific to part of grid observability, controllability, and condition monitoring for the forum here, but there are other points in which I believe the digital technology can actually help here.
Thank you for underlining again that to get data and also to exchange data between different components, actors, market players is most important to, I think, everything which we have here as an item. So it might be the foundation even. So thank you for outlining this. And with this, I would close the debate now because we are quite advanced, and would like to conclude this session with a very short conclusion of today's presentations. So we saw Mark Norton presented to us the project FlexiTransstore, and which channels the potential of a multitude of innovative assets and technologies to cover not only transmission systems, but the full range from distribution systems to transmission systems to make the most out of neural connection points between TSOs and DSOs. And he underlined also that it's not only important to provide services, but also to make them accessible to market players. So not only to put them there, but also to care about the implementation steps, which was a very interesting point. Thank you, Mark, for this presentation. Then followed Anastasis Tsumpas with the presentation of FARCROSS. And this project is all about the facilitation of cross-border electricity transmission, and develops a whole toolkit of integrated software and hardware solutions, but also technical and market codes, and also an investment planning facilitation for the different players. And it was very interesting to see how those different items are deployed in diverse demonstration sites. Then followed a distribution system operator project, let's say here in this session. Platone and Stavroula Tsioka explained to us how the Platone platform combines at a core the market platform, the TSO technical platform, and connects them with a security platform from blockchain technology. And this platform allows the connection of all those players to improve a system operation and also to access the potentials of flexibility. So how this platform at the core allows a multitude of use cases for customers, for DSOs, and also for market participants. And our final presentation came from David Rua. He outlined again the importance of interoperability and replicability for the future of our grids, but not only the grids, also for building automation for our customers' energy management. And he outlined also that a customer-centric approach is most important. So Interconnect develops a whole ecosystem for components, services, and tools to connect all these participants and to make their structures interoperable. I believe we had a great width of subjects and topics and a very diverse approach to the subject of asset technologies and innovation in asset management. And I thank all of you. I thank all the presenters today, the speakers, for their inspiring presentations. It was really a pleasure listening to you, and I hope that our audience feels the same and that you all participants here have enjoyed the time and gained valuable insights. And now we're a bit ahead of time, so I would say or suggest we do a very short coffee break of 5 minutes maybe and start around 11:30 to the next session. And thank you all for your participation, and we hope to see you again in the project session 2, Innovation in Markets, which will be moderated by Kirsten and Claire. So I say goodbye from my part and wish you all a nice day.
Thank you also from my side. So see you until the end. Thank you, Alex, for concluding actually this session. And now to the coffee break, very short one. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our second session on projects in InnoGrid 2021. I'm delighted to be with you. My name is Claire Camus. I'm communication manager at ENTSO-E, and I will have the pleasure to co-moderate this session with Kirsten Glenung from EDSO. So Kirsten, I don't know if you'd like to join me on screen and introduce yourself. Otherwise, I move on. So we have a very packed agenda today. So I want to allow our speakers to have as much time to present their projects and also take some questions. So good morning, Kirsten. It's nice to see you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome also from my side. Looking forward to a great discussion. My name is Kirsten Glenung, and I am the Projects and Sustainability Director at the EDSO, moderating this second session about innovation in market.
Thank you, Kirsten. So before we start, I would like to go back to some practical rules, which are about Slido, basically. So we are inviting you to really post your questions on Slido and to also answer some questions during poll sessions. So it's really important that you take this opportunity to interact with all the good speakers that we have today. And if you could just maybe introduce yourself, so give your name and maybe the organization that you're working for, and you will have the possibility to interact with each speaker after their presentation, but also in a panel after all the presentations have been completed. So today we are going to discuss about innovation in markets, flexibility, how to make sure that flexibility resources reach the market, how to increase consumer choices, engage consumers. So all very important topics today. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to George. If he's online, if he can join us on screen. Hello, George.
Hello.
So George, good morning. So George is a senior research consultant at European Dynamics, and he will present to us interface. So George, I leave you.
Okay, thank you, Claire, Kirsten, for your kind introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm indeed George Poutatakis from European Dynamics. I'm the coordinator of the Interface project. As always, it is my pleasure to be part of the InnoGrid event, and I would like to thank, on behalf of the Interface Consortium, the organizers for this opportunity to present our achievements. So if we may start with the next slide. So Interface stands for TSO-DSO Consumer Interface Architecture to provide innovative grid services for an efficient power system. It has answered the call of the Horizon 2020 program on the TSO-DSO consumer coordination. I would like just to focus on the consortium. Interface brings together 42 partners from 16 different countries. It is, I would say, a heavily industry-driven project with 7 transmission system operators, 8 distribution system operators, 1 regulator, 1 market operator, ENTSO-E, service technology providers, academia. So we have, let's say, a quite, let's say, a variety of different expertise that brings, let's say, the vision of interface. Next slide, please. So just a few words about the interface vision. So let's say that the interface project envisions to deliver what we call the integrated pan-European grid services architecture, and of course its IT implementation that will offer an interoperable architecture that, as you can see also on the screen, connects existing services, business models, coordination schemes with new incentive-based marketplaces and services, and that this, let's say, architecture and platform will offer access for customers to all markets, and optimized exploitation of their resources, of their assets, of their data, based on novel coordination schemes, novel technologies, and an efficient data management scheme. So we could say that the EEXA can be considered, let's say, an open architecture for sharing data among all participants in the electricity system value chain, from local, regional to European level, that enables the system operators and the customers to coordinate their efforts to maximize the potential of the distributed energy resources through an open and transparent market mechanism that allows the participation of more actors, a mechanism that favors at the same time small consumers or prosumers, and finally leads to the unlocking of flexibility, of significant flexibility potential. So next slide, please. So what you can see on the screen is a conceptual SGAM-based architecture for what I mentioned, I referred to as the EEXA. So based on the vision that I already described, we have designed the EEXA and we have developed the EEXA as a modular platform that is able to incorporate, first of all, and most importantly, the multidisciplinary manner of the applications that we studied. So our main consideration during the design phase was to ensure a seamless coordination among the different players and enable at the same time the connection and collaboration of the system operators, the market participants, the customers, and so on and so forth. So in order to achieve this, we realized that direct access to information and data is the most important step. Transparency, seamless data exchange was crucial, along with the utilization of standardized data formats that would allow interoperability between systems and markets. Therefore, a powerful data governance layer was developed to handle this analytical landscaping of data and information exchange, and to set the basis for interoperability of data and the promotion of a systematic way to treat international standards and adopt international standards. Next slide, please. So at the same time, the EEXA platform was designed to derive more efficient development and operation, assuring the secure and reliable operation of the networks of the system operators. So if we zoom in, as you can see on the slide, in the function layer of the architecture, we notice that the core functionality of the platform actually relies on certain architectural components, namely the flexibility register, the TSO-DSO coordination platform, the single interface to market, and the settlement unit. So it is worth mentioning that the flexibility register gathers and shares relevant information on potential sources of flexibility, enabling the connection of flexibility service providers to bring their flexibility products to market. It was important for its function of this module to enable renewable energy resources and distributed energy resources to provide ancillary or balancing services and assist to lower the entry barriers to market for prosumers, small consumers, who can now access the markets through the aggregators, the flexibility service providers, increasing in this manner the flexibility of the system. And similarly, and related to the seamless integration of actors, we have the single interface to market module that provides an interface to various markets, presenting the merit order lists and the available offers in a holistic way to the operators, and in this manner enabling them for a better coordination and subsequently for a better operation of the grid. Next slide, please. So zooming in and navigating through the business process, the market operators can define the requirements for the products and services. So flexibility service providers have a clear view of the available market products and the different thresholds and requirements, which allows more efficient aggregation. And the EEXA supports the design and utilization of harmonized and standardized products and services across Europe. Ending with my presentation, I would like to refer to lessons learned and aspects that need further investigation as a future perspective for EEXA. So it is important to say that initially we realized that there are several, let's say, initiatives that are emerging to support cross-border and even cross-sector market integration, which is a challenge, but also a real need. So the next step for the EXA development, the next steps are the facilitation of an operational framework for cross-border and even cross-sector exchange of information for trading, market integration, and of course, always through the utilization of the regulatory framework that already is in place, such as the data spaces and the data interoperability implementing acts. With this, I would like to thank you, and I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, George, to keep your time. Right now, the audience hasn't posted any questions specifically for you, George, but I had prepared a small question maybe for interface. When in your project you were selecting coordination schemes, can I ask you, how do you decided to test some coordination scheme rather than others? What was your basis?
Okay, actually, we have actually followed, I would say, very strictly the active system management report of ENTSO-E. So we have analyzed the different options that are offered there when it comes to the way of cooperation between the transmission and the distribution system operators. And following this, we actually made some proposals. We created some scenarios which are applicable for the different demos. And we have on board, let's say, 7 demos. And one could see that we are actually considering different options in the different, from the active system management report in the different demos. Of course, I would say that let's say what could be considered most important was the integration of the congestion management and balancing markets, but also the shared merit order lists for TSOs and DSOs.
Thank you very much, George. I have one question from you, from Gunnar Castle. Is asking regarding the flexibility services from low voltage grid users. What is about the DCC's idea on SFC by frequency groups? Sorry, for me, all these abbreviations are a bit.
Yes, also for me, I'm afraid.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Let me check. Of course, as a first, let's say, reaction, I would say that we are not actually involved in scenarios at this low level. I don't know if Gunnar could perhaps elaborate on his question, and I would be happy to reply to the. Okay, but as a first reaction, we are not, let's say, considering this low level, and also we have the perspective of the market mainly.
Okay, thank you very much, George. And if indeed Gunnar wants to send some specifications in the chat, I'm sure that you will be able to answer in the chat as well. Okay, so we've come to the end of your time, George, for now, and I pass on the word to Kirsten. Then thank you very much.
Kirsten, you're muted.
We're going to go on with the sister project of the InnoGrid, which is the coordinate project, and the presenter is. Do you hear me now?
I hear you, Kirsten, but not very well. Can you hear me?
So as I said, we're going on with the sister project. Yes, I hear you, Marco.
Yeah, good morning, everybody.
I will just pass on the and hopefully my internet connection will be up to speed, so I can give you a.
Yeah, maybe Marco, you can start with your presentation while Kirsten fixes some technical issues.
I hear you perfectly, so thank you very much.
Yes, and we can hear you as well.
Yeah, Claire, I hear you perfectly. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to present again coordinate to the InnoGrid event. I think that you will skip the presentation. In any case, I'm responsible for the subsidized programs in a global infrastructure network, promoting the participation of the electricity system distributors of the Enel Group in several innovative and innovation infrastructure funded projects around the world. Today I'm here to present Coordinate, so maybe you can go to the next slide. I will try not to present the overall project, since I guess you're already familiar with the project. I will try to answer a couple of questions that the organizer gave us. So before doing that, let me introduce briefly the project. Coordinate is a Horizon 2020 European project funded by European Commission and coordinated by e-Distribution. The consortium is composed of 23 partners plus a series of additional third parties, mainly DSOs who wants to contribute to the analysis and results of the project. As you know, we entered the last year of the project, where the results from the demos are collected and conclusions will be delivered. The project aims at demonstrating how DSOs and TSOs shall act in a coordinated manner to procure and activate grid services through the TSO-DSO consumer collaboration. Actually, the project includes a set of 10 demonstration activities in 3 demo areas involving both DSOs and TSOs from in the demo areas from Spain, Greece, and Spain. The consortium will define and adapt and demonstrate products and grid services and the related market platforms to contribute to the pan-European electricity market. If you can go on with the next slide. We will not talk about demos. In any case, how is it organized, Coordinate? We involve 3 demo areas and we try to cover as much as possible all the potential combinations among a series of factors that can really influence the acquisition of flexibility services by TSO and DSOs. So as you can see in this coordinate matrix, we listed the type of services we are dealing with, in particular balancing, congestion management, control the landing, and voltage controller. And we try to mix them up with the other factors like the time frame where these services are activated, the market models used to coordinate DSOs and TSOs for the acquisition.
I'm gonna call you in Teams. Just
sorry, I hear some noises. Okay, can I go on?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. No problem. Then the type of products that could fulfill the requirements of such services, that could be capacity of energy products, and then exploiting the resources available in each demo, we identify a set of business use cases for each of them. You can imagine that all the documentation and the technicalities for these business use cases are publicly available. So you can get access to the project website and download the business use cases if you're interested in that, okay? So let's go to the next slide, just to try to answer or to give some inputs for the discussion. The first question was, what are the key parameters that could really enable such scenario? Actually, we started thinking about the products and services. I guess that the audience is quite familiar with the list of services you can see in the left side of the slide. So balancing, inertial response, congestion management, voltage control, black start, and control the landing. We particularly focus on congestion management and voltage control, where we see, and balancing, where we see that the system and the distribution system operators involved in the project are mostly interesting in, but in any case, this is the full list of services. Starting from this, we identify also a set of technical products that could fulfill the requirements set by the services. And for these products, for this list of products, we identify a set of key parameters. We try to define as much as possible uniform products for all the demos, although due to the technical characteristics of the demos, but also the current regulatory framework of each demo, it is true that I mean, not all the product attributes could be fixed. They could differ from each other. It is also feasible that some of the products identified could fulfill more than one service, so there is no unique combination among a single product and a single service. Of course, once the demos are completed, so 1 year from now, actually, we are almost at the end of the project, it is obvious that we will go back to the product's definition in order to revise them and possibly complete the definition. If we can go on with the next slide, then we try to answer to the second question that you gave us, was can we envisage new roles for the regulated market parties? So the project is strongly involved in not only inside the project but even outside in order to I mean, share our thoughts and try to find a common approach on this. As you know, in December 2020, Coordinate contributed to the harmonized electricity market role model differential analysis, which is led by Areti and BIP, but that involves a lot of stakeholders that probably are also present today. The idea was to identify new roles, highlighting the potential difference with the model proposed by ENTSO-E. Some roles were already identified, like, for example, energy transfer cost calculator, the flexibility service checker, the marketplace operator. We guess that the definition of roles is quite consolidated now, depending on a couple of factors, which is the market structure and then the overall architecture and platform definition. We should identify which party could take any of these roles. Concerning the market roles, we made practically 4 questions to understand how many models we can envisage. You can see them in the slides. If you skip the animation, Claire or Kirsten, at the end we identify a set of combinations and then we deliver the list of market models that you can see on the bottom of the slide. So we go from the central market model, which is quite known since in some of the European countries it is already applied, up to the local market where the DSO is the unique responsible party for its management. Apart from the activities delivered, the results delivered in the project, the expectation from the Commission was, at least from the twin projects, and when I say twin project, I mentioned, I would say I'm referring to Coordinate and Interface that were funded by the same call for proposal. The idea was to find a common approach on this, so to try to link the point of view of Coordinate Interface with respect to the Active System Management Report, which was delivered in 2019 and was also mentioned by George in the previous presentation. The good news is that this paper is ready. Both the projects work on that. The report will be published next week, and the results of this preliminary analysis will be presented at the PowerTech conference on the 29th of June. If we can go on with the next slide, then in order to answer to the same question, you can also skip the animation in this slide. Then the other point that will really influence the way the parties will take these roles is the organization of the overall architecture and platforms. Independently from the characteristics of the specific demos within Coordinate, but also in Europe, I mean, there are 3 models that we should consider independently from the specific configurations. One is the grid monitoring operation. So regardless of the activation and flexibility from the system operators, the operators should guarantee the quality of service and the operation of the network, even in presence of a massive amount of flexibility services and REST integration. And regardless of the market functioning, we could also envisage a communication among the DSO and TSO systems and the end users that will provide such flexibility. In addition to that, we envisage a market operation architecture and also an aggregation and disaggregation functionalities which are much closer to the end resources that should ensure the aggregation and disaggregation of resources. This is the end of the presentation, Kirsten and Claire. This is the link to the project website where you can download all the deliverables that I mentioned during the presentation. Thank you very much for this time.
Thank you, and sorry for not being able to introduce you properly before, so thanks for doing it yourself. There's one question on Slido for you, which concerns the cooperation with Interface and how you ensure this link. I think you partly answered it in your presentation, but in case you want to develop it just with a few words, I know you have also a presentation coming up at the Power Tech later this month.
If George agrees with me, I think that it was fine to link our idea on the market roles and possibly in the future also about the products and services within this paper. So in this paper you can see how the market roles fit the potential schemes delivered by the active system management report. I think that we should continue to interact with Interface, because at the end, as you probably remember, this project have practically a complementary approach on this topic. I mean, we started with a bottom-up approach, trying to identify products and services, and then step by step we go to higher levels of coordination among the parties, while Interface is trying to identify a standardized market platforms that could be applied then to each of the demos. So I guess that this collaboration will be very productive in the next months and before the end of the projects.
Thank you, Marco. And indeed, the paper is also downloadable if anybody is interested. I give the floor back to Claire and to the Onenet project.
Thank you, Kirsten. Hello, Antonello. So Antonello Monti is professor and institute director at the RWTH in Aachen. So Antonello will present to us the project Onenet. So Antonello, if you're ready, please go ahead.
Yep. Thank you. I hope you can hear me. Thank you very much for the introduction, and I'm happy here to introduce the project Onenet, One Network for Europe, that I'm coordinating. I have to be precise here. I'm coordinating the project using my position at the Fraunhofer FIT in the Fraunhofer Zentrum für Digitale Energie, which is a center of cooperation between Fraunhofer and RWTH, which is my university. Next slide, please. First of all, a little bit about the Onenet Vision. First, let me say we are a very young project compared to the previous two projects that were just introduced. And so we are still in an early phase, but we have a very high ambition. The ambition is to, as the name says, is really to create a unique vision for Europe. So we would like to create a fully replicable and scalable architecture, so that to bring the whole European system together as a single one, which means that we want to allow a variety of markets, and we want to enable the universal participation of stakeholders. We can have such an ambition, let me say, because I have to give credit to the previous presentations, because we build on top, particularly on the two projects that were just before introduced. So there were the two sister projects. We are the child project somehow. We have been funded in the same call in the next round when the other project were already about 2 years on the road. Next slide, please. Yeah, and that's where our knowledge base comes. So we have been funded, like I said, in the TSO-DSO customer cooperation call, but we bring together a large base of knowledge. The two I like to mention, and as I say, is a coordinated interface, but actually it's also a broader base, because as I will show you later, the number of partners and so the access to knowledge we have with the Onenet project is really unique. And that's what we can have such an ambition. Also, the follow-up presentation, the project Universal, will play a key role in the definition of the Platone outcome, of the Onenet outcome, as well as the project Platone. So like Platone and Universal are sister project in another call, and bringing more of the distribution system operator perspective and merging here together with the other two projects in this Onenet vision. Next slide, please. Key element, and I think very important asset for the project, are our demonstration. And here we took a completely different level from previous experience, because we cannot talk about a single demonstration. We talk about cluster of demonstration. There are cluster organized in 4 regions of Europe. As you can see here from the map, the Western cluster, the Northern cluster, the Eastern cluster, and the Southern cluster. That way, we cover a large majority of the European countries, and in each cluster we have multiple DSO and TSO, so that we can really have the possibility to see the different perspective of Europe and all the different possibility of combination of use cases. And that allows us then to test new market concepts in real life in a unprecedented scale for a single project. Next slide, please. Yeah, as I mentioned, we have more than 70 partners, and that's the value, also a challenge for me as coordinator, which I'm anyway happy to take. We have the 2 associations together, so ENTSO and TSO-E, a large set of TSO and DSOs, large and leading IT companies, and also renewed research institution. Of course, for reason of time, I cannot go through the list, but you can yourself go through the logos and see the variety of partners that we have that allow us to have this knowledge base that I mentioned from the beginning. Next slide, please. Still waiting to see the slide on my screen. I don't know if it's my screen frozen. Okay, perfect. And last point about the project, then I will briefly answer the questions as well from my perspective. A very important activity within the project is the creation of a platform. In this case, it's not a platform like George was mentioning. This is a platform of people, and this is called Griffon. It stands for Grid Forum. And what we want to have is that if Onenet wants to have this ambition to bring together this knowledge base and make an overarching proposal for Europe, we cannot limit the involvement in the discussion only to the partners in the project. We cannot even limit to the Horizon 2020 discussion. And that means we need to have a way to communicate to the broader audience. And this is Griffon. Griffon is then a forum. We organize events, we collect knowledge base on our website, and I just suggest you to go and visit our website, because we have the first real Griffon event coming up. Let me tell you exactly, it's going to be next Friday at 12, and where we'll present some of the first results of the project. And I strongly encourage you to visit the website of the project, Onenet, and there to learn about this first event and also the upcoming event, and to become a stakeholder, a member of this forum, so that we can involve you in basically giving us feedback while the project is running, so that at the end we hope to have results that will have represent a quite shared view of the situation. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the points that were on the discussion. So we want to create a framework for standardized process. So one of the important challenges we want to address is to increase the harmonization among products. So reducing fragmentation, facilitating the participation, and that is the idea is also that there will be products that can be used for more than one service. So we have been running in this first phase of the project a very large review of the options and the possibility, working on what we call business use case of the project in an activity that is now coming to an end. And that's basically the goal, this activity of harmonization. A little bit more disruptive view would be the idea to abandon this concept of product as been considered so far. This is like with the advanced view, but to have product that can be driven by parameters, and system operators then can interact with this parameter to really define the concrete product. Next slide. Another aspect about the roles. Here I resonate pretty much with what Marco just said. We are not focusing on inventing new roles. We are, as mentioned, some important work done first in ENTSO-E, and then the work done within Bridge by the Herman, led by Areti within the Platone project. So that's not exactly a focus of the project, and but we are contributing and cooperating with the activity that are already ongoing, like mentioned, for example, in the Bridge and the report just released by Herman and produced within Bridge. Next slide. And about a little bit more looking forward. So we have a very extensive theoretical market framework, start with a gap analysis, and several aspects of integration will be explored: integration between services, between system operator, between voltage level, between market agent. That from the beginning of the preparation of the proposal, we were talking about this multi-multi, where we think we want to be different in testing in Onenet, is that instead of looking also the single interaction between one TSO and one DSO, we want to enable with our structure and with our IT solutions any kind of possible interaction, DSO to DSO, DSO to TSO, multiple involvement across countries, and so on. So that really we are sure that at least from the possibility of what the data exchange is and the architectures are, any kind of possible market exchange is available, and then will be customized obviously locally with the different country situation, and then but still using a common framework and compatibility approach. Yeah, I think with this is my last slide, if I'm not wrong, and I hope I already this way answer what we've been able to do so far. One remark, I just got news that the seminar that was scheduled for 1 week from now have been postponed to September, but in any case, I'll still encourage you to visit our webpage to learn about the activities in Griffon and how to become active in Griffon, because that's what will be really the most important part. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Antonello. I see some questions indeed on the chat for you. One is from Jim Allen. He's interested in knowing, having your thoughts on whether TSO will need in the future direct access to DSO assets.
I don't think this is something that we have already, I would say, no, we haven't direct addressed this aspect in the project so far. Like I say, we are rather young in that respective. So what I could give it just my personal interpretation for what I know so far, what we have been doing also for example, in the project Platone, which will be somehow incorporated in the architecture. I don't see the direct need, but there will be obviously channels open, as already mentioned, previous operational report have been written, that will enable the possibility to interact with assets, even if that doesn't mean, in my view, that you want to have a direct access to it.
Thank you very much.
It's my personal interpretation from what I've been doing than the position of the project.
Okay, one other question was about the challenges that you see in terms of harmonization of products and services in Europe. Do you see a lot of diversity?
Yes, definitely. There are a lot of challenges, and And that's why we need those 4 clusters, because it's not only about replicating different, for example, climate situation between North and South of Europe, but it's also, I like to say, and I always bring this example, but it's also because it's also about culture. We don't have a single culture in Europe, which is a nice thing. It's one of the powerful point of Europe. But like, for example, when we talk about data, if I compare the northern part of Europe with other parts of Europe, including Germany, where I'm active, the view on data and data privacies are so different, and culture is so embedded in the way things are done that you cannot imagine a model that works 100% in Germany and in Sweden. And this is something that we should not change. I think, you know, it's part of the variety of Europe, and that's what makes it somehow even stronger, because we can have different perspective. But at the same time, it's a challenge when we think about how we structure solution. Nevertheless, I would say the IT solutions, particularly when it comes to this aspect of data sovereignty, are now evolving so much and giving us so much flexibility that we are able to incorporate those changes. So that means that we have maybe similar tool or the same tool that behaves in a completely different way because it's customized by the region. And that's the value of those clusters, because we can try that this assumption is real in the different settings.
Thank you very much, Antonello. One last question from Gunnar Castle. He was talking again about Griffon, and whether you can elaborate a bit on this, and whether it's the concept is the same, is a new roundtable, is a roundtable concept we know for standardization, or we know from standardization. So I don't know if you can just explain a bit what Griffon is.
Yeah, sure, I'm very happy. For us, this is one of the major points in the project. It started like something we had in the description work, and it's something that then the commission picked up and said, no, we really want this to be central. So at the beginning of the project, we are a little bit to restructure our work to make this more central in operation. Is somehow similar to the standardization work, but I think it's more than this and different. What we want to be is first of all, to be fully transparent of what happens in the project. So we are envisioning things like putting deliverables while in preparation available for people to comment. We'll have open documents for sure, not maybe some that are not even deliverable, but they kind of summarize the view of the project. They will be available sort of like a Google Docs, where people in the Griffon can come and say their opinion. We'll have meetings as well. This is more like the roundtable type of scenario. As I mentioned, the first one was scheduled, but now postponed to September. We are discussing now with the Commission to have another round of short meetings in which we address specific questions, and Onenet will be there with the Griffon concept. We want to create a knowledge base. We want to be able to collect the opinion. We want to interact with as many people as possible, because if we, you know, the view of the Commission was we have these first 2 projects that were presented before, they create the groundwork. We try to bring them together in a single vision, and the best would be that after Onenet, they are very much close to market. If you want to be close to market, it cannot be just the opinion of even 70 members that are in a consortium, must be an European opinion. And that's what we try in every way. And if somebody has ideas on how to increase our channel of interaction, we are totally open to discuss. We are learning in the process as well, I would say.
Thank you very much, Antonello. Definitely, there are a couple more questions on Griffon, but I will leave you maybe to answer in the chat, because it's time now to move on to the next project. So I would like to invite Kirsten, and thank you very much, Antonello.
You're welcome. Thank you all for the questions as well.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Anto. And with the last project, we welcome now Carlos Pedro Marquez from ENTSO-E to come to the screen. And I see you already, as always, in very beautiful surroundings with good weather. Carlos Pedro is working on European policies and projects at the ENTSO-E, which is the Portuguese member of ENTSO, and he will present now the EU Universal Project. Please go ahead.
Okay, good morning. Are you listening?
Yes, we hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, as Antonello said, I'm explaining you briefly what Universal Project stands for. It's not a general project as Onenet. We're contributing to Onenet, but specifically focused on the DSO perspective and on local markets. Next slide, please, Kristen. And you can skip this one also. Okay, the project is about a new concept that we're bringing of the UMI, Universal Interface, that I'll explain afterwards, that will try to integrate active system management, as discussed between us and us DSOs and the TSOs, the market platforms, whatever they might be, the prosumers and consumers in the future, the energy communities, and aggregators as also. Kirsten, go ahead, please. So what's this UMI interface? It's a different concept. It's not technological approach. It's a holistic approach to try to have generic interfaces between DSO as a market facilitator, is reinforcing its role as a market facilitator, since most of DERs are connected to the DSO, and the market, or even if that's the case, big customers. From this project point of view, we'll have two market platforms, Nodes and Insight, and an aggregator, Centrica. And so we'll try to show that it is possible to have this full interaction between us without the need of any managed platform. So it should be like an Android system where anyone can have its own specific developments if each one complies to a certain set of rules that we're going to try to define. Of course, the TSO, although the project hasn't got any TSO as a partner, will obviously consider the TSO role, and who knows, in the future we'll be able to connect to the DSOs also with this interface. Next, please. So the project has a threefold approach. We're addressing smart grid solutions, already showed and discussed in former presentations today. We're addressing local market flexibility mechanisms, all of them, and I'll talk about that later on, and flexibility needs and grid services, in this case, as I said, from the DSO point of view. Next slide, please. So this is already a new deliverable. We've discussed between us, DSOs in the project, it's Redes, E.ON through Midnet in Germany, and Energia operator in Poland. We studied, of course, former discussions, former outputs of other projects, and we reached a set of needs that the DSO has today, or is starting to have, and expecting to have it, with much more strength in the future. General physical and voltage congestions, but then we are going to address also support to network planning and support to network operations. So by using flexibility to optimize those. Phase balancing is also being under study, and support to extreme events, and who knows, and after we have an extreme event, support to islanding to to assure the proper delivery of energy to the customer. So we have a set of needs, and so we're try to describe a group of flexibility services in order to solve them. Always in this case from the DSO point of view, because we're addressing the local issues. Next, Kirsten. Relating to the market mechanism, as I said, we're addressing almost all of those that already exist. We're not going to demonstrate them all. We're demonstrating some of them and studying more theoretically others with real data. The main conclusions, and this is another deliverable that's being produced, is that this can't be one solution for everything. Different use cases, different sites, different grid problems will enforce different solutions from the market. This is quite challenging. There's a lot of work to be done in this project, and we expect in the future projects as well, obviously. So what we've done, we've designed the elements that we need for acquiring the new services, and then we'll try to have, in the end of the work package concerned with this issue, a tailored recommendation on procurement of mechanisms for suitability for flexibility use. We have already a proposal in this deliverable, but we're going to study it further through the project. Next, Kirsten. This is an overview of the use cases we're going to implement in the demos. So as you see in the service column, it's all about corrective congestion management, voltage control. Almost everything goes to the same. But as I said, for instance, in case of the timeline, we're going to address flexibility markets to other purposes other than just straightforward congestion and voltage control, but planning both ahead and operational and investment planning deferral. We also have dynamic line rating. So in this case, we will be the deliverable. We won't be the customer. We will be the ones that give the DLR to the customers, the producers in this case, in the Poland demo. And we'll study another form of market, not with platform markets, but a bilateral contract also in Poland. So we have a lot of different set of common rules that we have set up, but slightly different approaches. And by the way, in German, we're integrating this procurement of flexibility with redispatch new rules. And in Portugal, we'll have the opportunity to have two market platforms side by side, working with the same operator, which is a rede, to show that this UMI, the interface, and the set of rules we're trying to define will work with different market platforms. Next, please, Kirsten. So, as I've been saying, in the future, we'll have to combine all these options, and some may come up, some new options may come up. This will be quite challenging and requires a lot of effort from regulation and a lot of effort from us that will be able to contribute to the coordination of this to make it possible and cost effective for everyone, including all stakeholders, including the customer. One specific issue that we hopefully will see more developed in the future is around local markets, is how to manage different platforms in the same market. We're not addressing those in universal. We're having different platforms in different areas, but this is a very complex theme of how to integrate different offers in the same region. And by the way, how to avoid gaming. We're trying to prove that we're going to be able to avoid it in the project, and so keep attention on the track on the further results. And finally, this how to coordinate DSO TSO, because we might experience a lot of local constraints, and we expect to have them controlled with the TSO requests, and that's sort of the aim of Onenet project, to integrate it all and make it all work together, as Antonella has already said. And that, next slide, Kirsten. Yeah, that ends my presentation. Thank you very much. We're not listening to you, Kirsten. Now we are, yeah.
Okay, good. There are two questions for you also on Slido. I think one of them you already answered a bit about the gaming, so those interested in those aspects should keep an eye on EU Universal website for further results. Then we have a question about, again, this distributed communication, and the demand connection code is again from Gunnar Kessels, who is asking if you're looking at grid voltage as a local signal in this content of demand connection code. So to understand as frequency response for small users.
No, I didn't understand. Could you repeat, Kirsten? I didn't understand the question.
So the question as he puts it is again that he wants to ask about this demand connection code, so the frequency response for small users. And he asks whether EU Universal is looking at the grid voltage as a local signal. I guess at the hour of activation, but indeed it's a bit difficult question. If you prefer, we have also a question about distributed energy resources from Jim Allen, which is saying the visibility of the network assets and connected DER, low carbon technologies, grid edge devices and smart meters is a critical enabler to the future market design. How advanced is the visualization of these assets in the digital system map? I think it's a general question, but in your demos, this is something that you're working with.
For instance, I can say in the Portuguese demo, we'll have smart meters deployed all over, and so that will be mandatory. They'll be connected, and also in the German one, to Centrica through the aggregator. So the aggregator will have access to consumption patterns, and will be able to act upon the loads, either turning them on or turning them off, and so by doing that, we'll have another layer that through the market platforms to try to monetize that control of the smart network. But don't forget that we're also addressing the DSO needs. So we're also optimizing from the point of view of the DSO.
Yes, indeed. And maybe just to follow a little bit up on the gaming, in case you want to answer, because there are two questions in the questions I see now. How real do you perceive the threat of gaming?
Well,
is it more a theoretical one, or is it?
Yeah. I think from the time being, it's theoretical. We're trying to show that it's not really an issue. It can be controlled, but this is easier said than done. And so when you have a different set of market options, meaning it's different to have one market agent working in a specific area and have a lot of market options, some of them market-based and some of them, for instance, through dynamic tariffs and everything. So it's quite complex. It can be solved for sure, but when all market options are mixed together, it can't be a mess. So everything must be quite understood and controlled. And so that's why I said it requires further work. We're going to contribute with this, but we probably won't finish the job, and new studies and new projects will have to put it all together and find out what new problems may arise.
Thank you. We look forward to follow what you come up with from Universal. I give the floor back to Claire, who is having us all go to Slido, I think.
Yes, now we're coming to the more interactive part of this session. So we're starting the panel, and we would like to invite you to go to Slido. And while we put this on for you, I will read out the questions that you can find on clicking on the tab on Polls tab. There is a question here that says that which parameters do you consider key to ensure the seamless coordination between the different market players? And we've got different options for you to choose from: liquidity, product standardization, regulatory framework, and also the presence of a neutral market operator. So if you'd like to take the next 2 minutes to cast your vote, and we will be looking at the results on screen afterwards. So please go ahead. So like for the first poll, we seem to have a strong winner. Ah, no, that's the first poll. Sorry, you don't see the correct one. Excuse us for this. We'll try again. So you had more time to answer. Yes. We almost had a tie there. So yeah, some votes are still coming in. All right, just I'll allow 1 more minute. Okay. Things are moving real time. So right, I think we have a sort of a tie here. It's between, yeah, it's people are choosing product standardization or regulatory framework as the key parameters here. So thank you very much for having participated to the poll. What I would like to invite our speakers to do is to turn on their cameras so we can see them for this panel session. And I invite you to just raise your hand like this when you want to speak, so we can give you the floor, and maybe ask among you who wants to first comment on this the results of this poll. So between the two answers that we got from the audience, which parameter would you think are the most important here? Is there one of you, or should I just thank you, Carlos. You can turn on your microphone and
yeah,
go ahead.
I agree with the panel. So we have both of these as the main issues to being addressed in the future. Please take in mind, everyone, that product standardization is mandatory right now and near future, but hopefully while we do it, we we can't block future developments and future innovation. And so it's important now to set the basis of what we're building, but we have to leave open door for innovation in products. While we're doing the projects, some innovation is coming in. For instance, in ours, we have a new product that came through the discussion between a market platform and a DSO, and so we must follow this aim, but leave always space for new innovation. As regard to regulatory framework, it's important, for instance, for the gaming issue and for the coordination of all these market options that we have. Some of them rely on most of them rely on the regulatory framework if we want them to coexist together. So both them are important, and I agree with the panel.
So maybe Marco, and then we take George.
Yeah, just a short comment, Claire. I mean, practically the result of the Slido questionnaire reflects perfectly the point of view of Coordinate. I mean, as we highlighted in the presentation, the product standardization for us, it's the best way to accelerate this scenario. I will also mention the regulatory framework because let's forget for a moment the funded project, but these projects are limited by nature for obvious reasons. What the system and the distribution system operators are pushing towards is the recognition of some regulatory sandboxes, because at the end it's the perfect way to test in a limited environment the acquisition of flexible resources even in an affordable way. I mean, this is the point of attention by regulatory authorities, how the flexibility services at the end could replace or postpone network investments to give operators some alternatives for their usual business. So I guess that, I mean, the question for me is quite perfect this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. George, you wanted to also react?
Yes, I just want to say, excuse me, regarding the product standardization, also this was my selection, I would say, and I think that this reflects also I guess, I hope also the vision of Marco, of Antonello, as we are, let's say, all three projects are, let's say, quite active and focusing on the better coordination, let's say, in the grid. So I think that product standardization is indeed very important for the seamless integration between markets. And I also believe what is, let's say, at least from our perspective, the challenge is to have some standard definitions that would also simplify the cross-border exchange and also would integrate, let's say, with national markets in order to reach this pan-European marketplace vision.
Thank you very much. Kirsten, maybe you have a question as well for our panelists?
Give Anto a chance. I see he's waving on the line.
I was just going to say that, of course, also from the Onenet perspective, inheriting from the other project, and as I mentioned in the presentation, the harmonization is critical. That's why also I select basically that, but of course we cannot do it without the regulatory framework. So I'm not surprised at the results.
Thank you.
No, me neither. I think that maybe they could have even been aligned together. But coming back a little bit on like how far you are in your projects and how you of course each cooperate, I have a question specifically for interface and coordinate, because you're already more than 2 years down the road now, and you have done a lot of work already, have many interesting deliverables on your website. So I was wondering, especially in regards to this market innovation that we've been discussing today, if you found that while you were working, there were some aspects that were maybe not so well studied that then should be prioritized in the future to also, let's say, reach some more mature markets on some of the products we have been discussing today. I don't know who wants to start. Marco, you're nodding.
I can start if George, sorry, George. Kirsten, I mean, how we can extend the project scope, there are a couple of points. One was mentioned by Cristobal Irazuki at the beginning, when he mentioned the new call for proposal concerning the cross-sector integration. I mean, probably we should see how these platforms not only deliver and enable flexibility services for electricity, but somehow how we can exploit the same platforms for providing different services. This is a critical point, in particular concerning the engagement of end consumers that see all these technicalities as an opportunity to have better services in the energy system. And this is a critical point because, I mean, we should engage as much as possible the end consumer that so far are quite, you know, far from this scenario. The second point is about the domains, because I see that most of the projects, maybe I'm wrong, but most of the projects deal with operation in their projects. Actually, as we see in some of the UK markets, flexibility is also very useful in planning, and so far I didn't see so many projects on that domain. So the possibility to use flexibility to postpone network investments or replace network investments. What we are trying to develop in ETIPS.NET together with some of the stakeholders that today are here present is to try to deliver projects where all these domains are treated in a unique way, in order to create a sort of we call it a one-stop shop system, where starting from the connection phase up to the operation and maintenance of the network, flexibility is seen as a unique tool to help operators manage their systems.
Thank you, Marco. Is it a similar feeling from your side, George, also some more looking into using flexibility in the planning, or do you have some other aspects to add?
Of course, I agree with the point of Marco. These are also some, let's say, scientific, let's say, points for further study within interface. Also, another thing that we're considering, of course, we think that let's say is missing from our focus is, as I already mentioned in my concluding slide, is the cross-sector integration. But I will now just say a few words about the cross-border trading. So I think that also this is important. We are, of course, in interface, we are already exploring a relevant use case, of course, at let's say low level, I would say. But I consider this as a major challenge when it comes to standardize, let's say, product definitions, things that we already mentioned, to the market integration between regions or countries, and also to the integration of different platforms and marketplaces. So I would perhaps say cross-border trading for interface.
I see ENTSO wants to react to that. Please go ahead.
I just want to, second what Marco just said. I think one of the major value of digitalization is to break the traditional barriers in the way companies in general are operating. So planning was one department, operation was one other department. They didn't talk too much. Now we have the possibility in real time to have exchange of information. And I think when you look about a point like linking or connecting new renewables in the grids, and this is a classical example which we need to speed up the process so that we can quickly give an answer to they want to build this, so that immediately those are integrated. And then it means clearly that your data from what the grid is doing today, which is my operation, so results of state estimation, are to be mapped immediately to the planning that has to be done to incorporate the request and be able to answer to the customers. I think this process can be completely transformed if you think digitalization is a way to unify the process within the companies.
And Carlos Pedro, from your point of view, you're working mostly on the DSO level, but do you also see that you can use the UMA in this aspect to also help on planification of the network investments, or rather deferral of network investments that it can?
As we said, we're going to have a use case in this case in Portugal, to try to understand how to track it. So we're going to use a long-term product with reserve.
I think, yeah.
More near the actual need, and so in fact we're addressing it, and it's not at the first stage. It doesn't seem to be very easy because we're thinking very much ahead and there's some risks involved. But we're going to try to include some rules that assure that the reserved flexibility will be available when time comes, when it's needed, even if it's reserved years ahead.
That's very interesting as well. Maybe coming back a little bit to the story of the products that also received quite a lot of votes in our poll. George, you were talking about the cross-border trading. That is of course more easy if we have the similar products. And I know that Anto, in Onenet, you're also doing a big job to try and see what is even the landscape looking like in terms of products. In your point of view, all four of you, how far away are we from each other in Europe when we are talking about grid products?
Yes, I think that this is a question that would need a bigger session, let's say, to address.
You can always answer on a scale from 1 to 10 if you need to.
I think that it is, let's say, a quite challenging issue that all of the projects, I'm pretty sure, that are trying to address. From our perspective, first of all, my reply my first reaction would be that, of course, we still need much, let's say, work to do in order, let's say, to reach this level that would allow us to let's say, to enable a more, let's say, holistic vision. In any case, I just wanted to say from the interface project perspective that this is the reason that from the early beginning we followed what we call the top-down and bottom-up approach, meaning that on the one hand, we wanted from the bottom up to see what are the real needs coming from the grid, from the system operators. At the same time, we had our experts in the market design, in the product definition, in the coordination schemes that actually follow the top-down approach, trying to examine carefully the different scenarios of the different demonstrators in order, let's say, somehow to see what is, let's say, the level of convergence between the products and the services that would be offered. So
you're nodding, Marco. Is it a similar feeling in Coordinate from your point of view?
Yes, Kirsten, I mean, it's a difficult question. I got a couple of comments, maybe. I hope that these are useful. First is that we should not wait for all the solutions for this very complex scenario. I mean, while the European projects work on the coordination schemes, markets, and technical solutions, I mean, even if the market will not be 100% mature, also the possibility to acquire some local and bilateral flexibility sources to start working on that could be very useful. So without waiting for the full scenario, I guess that in the next years, flexibility will be activated in different ways. I see more complex the engagement of small consumers or from a network perspective, low voltage users, because while utility scale or bigger plants are already used to provide some technical services to the grid in the existing markets. For the smaller consumers, the level of awareness seems to be lower, and also the complexity of aggregation could probably limit somehow in the short term their participation. So, I mean, we should work more on that, in my opinion.
So more focus on the activation of the consumers, and then there's hope for the rest.
Consumers and producers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm afraid that is all we're going to be able to catch for this session, but really want to thank you for very good presentations and for being open-minded to my complex questions now for the debate. I hope we will have a chance to continue this debate, but I'm sure so, because there are many links as we have already underlined between the four projects. So thank you again for participating today.
Thank you, everyone. Maybe Kirsten, you can introduce the next speaker, or shall I do it?
With pleasure, of course. To those of you who are with us since the morning, we are again with Uroš Slavomir, who is the Director of Strategic Innovation Department in ELES, who is also one of our colleagues in the Onenet project that we just had here on the screen with the coordinator Antonella Manto. And he is also Vice Chair of Research and Development Innovation Committee in ENTSO-E. Please, the floor is yours, Uroš.
Thank you, Kirsten. So I hope you hear me. I have this great pleasure to wrap up the whole event, both sessions and the introductory speeches. I think we had an extremely vivid conference going on today. The number of attendees was exceeding 200, and we still keep a lot of them in the room, which is great. And I think we started with very provocative positions from the initial speakers, but then we actually went into the challenge of how smart technologies can provide better utilization of the network. And here, actually, I could take out three important conclusions. So first, the monitoring, observability are the key elements. So if we are able to bring the monitoring into the economically manageable form, we will actually be deriving the first step of the smart technologies deployment. What was also explicitly noted was that security and the reliability of the use of these technologies should reach a proper level. So if we don't bring to the system operators the proper level of security of the use of these smart technologies, we will probably have more problems. And we also investigated in the first step, in the first session, that the markets have to take these benefits on. So if we deploy smart technologies without thinking at the same time how we bring it into the markets, this might cause problems. So it was assessed somehow that the potential for these smart assets to be deployed is quite high, that we have between 5–30% possibility to improve the use of existing grids, which seems to be quite a lot. But now we are moving into the second session because we heard that the market uptake of this technology is so important. Now we have to look into, okay, what the markets can bring to us. And we were dealing in the second session with the development of the vertical integration platforms. I would call it vertical integration platforms because now we are talking about TSO, DSO integration customers platforms, and we heard they're on the way. We are bringing together flexibility service, so we are on a very good way that these platforms will actually succeed in bringing different services together. We talk about balancing, we talk about congestion management, we heard about voltage control, and many other services are on the way. It looks like these platforms will actually be able to bring together also the TSOs, the DSOs, the small players, the big players. There was no claim that this is not possible. So maybe we should now look for the proof. Did anyone bring the proof that this can actually be achieved? Nobody was actually talking about it, but I think from the deliverables, which you will have to look up from the web pages of these projects, there will be a lot of proofs given out. And maybe there are, but we didn't talk a lot about that today. But Cristobal was explicitly saying, give us the proof. So we will also bring together the aggregators. You know, the aggregators, they want to look into a same platform to deliver different services because he wants to make profit out of flexibility. And if he has to bid on different platforms, then of course this is much harder for him to do. So it looks that aggregators and different market parties can all normally operate on these integration platforms. We have seen that different projects are supporting various business use cases. I saw that these use cases are spanning on different levels. There was a claim that that some project did not go into the planning, but I think some of them did go into the planning, or maybe if not, the Onenet project will definitely go into the planning phase. So I think the existing integration platforms can cope with different business use cases. I think this should be ensured and will be ensured. We heard a lot about inclusive approach of the development of these platforms, and that these platforms development is going to be and is open to all the stakeholders, not only from internal project partners, but also going outside. And we heard that the harmonization is really important, is the key here, that these platforms try to harmonize everything. So the needs, the services, everything what I said before should be harmonized, but harmonized with the aspect of diversity. So we heard that one solution will not fit all, and that we will need to diversify business use cases support and different elements of these platforms. What is very important for me, and I will try to conclude on this point, is that some of the presenters mentioned the cost effectiveness, but this will really be the key deciding element in the future. So how these platforms will be used, which use cases they will support, which services they will be used for, and of course, going back to the beginning of our today's sessions, which smart technologies will they support? So how much of the monitoring, observability, and other assets will be deployed? How much batteries and how much of the security equipment will be installed on the smart grid technologies? This will all be depending on the cost effectiveness. So for these reasons, we need to move also in the deployment. So as I said in my early statement this morning, we don't know exactly. Are we now 90% to the end of this process? Are we almost there? Are these platforms just one step up to being implemented? Or are we just maybe at the 20 or 30% of the whole development which needs to be taken? So maybe we bring these platforms into the sandboxes, into some real environments, and then we just realize, okay, we have to rerun some things, or maybe we have to rerun many things. From the experience of the horizontal integration, I'm moving into completely different environments. I'm talking about cross-border horizontal integration of the markets, cross-border markets. I can say that, you know, the TSOs are working on this integration for more than 20 years and have not yet fulfilled all the expectations of the public. So I would really like that this process of vertical integration will be faster, will bring the results faster. And I will just finish with one idea, that we should think about using the integration platforms also for the cross-sector integration. So moving from vertical integration, TSO, DSO aggregation, into cross-sector. We have to be cautious there, I think because cross-sector platforms will complicate the whole stuff, will really bring a lot of new elements coming from the heat, coming from the gas sector, coming from e-mobility. We have to be cautious there, but definitely the end of this process will be that we will have one integrated and unified system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ross, for these very inspiring thoughts. Thank you very much for this conclusion. I would like to say thank you to you and to all our speakers today, and for all the people who attended the InnoGrid. All the material, the recording of this session will be available online. And we also hope that you will continue the discussion with us on social media, with our speakers, and continue to watch innovation projects and how they develop. And we can only hope that we will have another interesting conference next year. So with this, I wish you a very nice day. Bye-bye.